What's up, Notjust developers, and welcome to a new live tutorial. Today, we're gonna build the user interface, the mobile application of an e-commerce application, and for that, we're gonna obviously use Expo, React Native, and Gluestack. So, what exactly we're gonna build? We're gonna build an e-commerce application that would allow users to view products, to manage their shopping cart, to add products to their shopping cart, and then after we have a shopping cart, we can place the orders and then later track the order as it progresses. We're also going to cover the authentication flows, logging in, creating an account, and everything that you need to have in order to have an e-commerce application. So what stack we're going to use? We're going to use React Native Expo for the mobile application. And with this stack, we're going to be able to build a cross-platform mobile application that can both run on Android and iOS, and also for the web as well. So with the same code base, we're gonna have three outputs, Android, iOS, and web, which we're gonna build and cover today as well. We're gonna use Expo Router for the navigation, for the screens, for moving between screens. And we're gonna use Zustand for the global state management. For example, we're going to have a shopping cart and we need the information about shopping cart in a lot of places in our application. For that, we're going to use and learn about Zustand, how we can do that, which is a really nice global management library. To interact with our server, we're going to use TanStack Query. Here it is. And with TanStack Query, we're going to send and request to our server to fetch data, to fetch the products, to fetch the orders, and also to create or to submit data, to create an order, to update an order, and so on. With TanStack Query, we can do that in a way that is going to be cached locally, and the application will scale really nicely. Even when you are sending the same request from multiple places in the application, it's going to be optimized to use the cache most of the time. And finally, for the user interface, we're going to use Gluestack UI, which, if you're not familiar yet, you should, because this is a very nice component library for React and React Native that allows you to build cross-platform applications that target both mobile and web as well. So this is a collection with a lot of popular components that are designed and built by professionals that we can easily copy paste and use in our application. Here we can see some of them, but during the video we're gonna dive into more of the components that we can use. And what I really like about this library that stands that is better in my opinion compared to others is that they allow these copy-paste components that allows us to only use the things that we want without bloating our application with thousands of components that you might never need. So instead of that, we have a lot of components, but you only pick and choose the things that you want, and you copy paste them in your source code with the ability to look into the code to understand what is behind the scenes and maybe adjust things for your own needs, which is really nice for a component library like this. The same code, the same components that you write are both available for Expo and Next.js, and this is going to be very handy for us in the next video when we are going to build a dashboard with Next.js. More about that a bit later. But here are some examples of responsive applications built with Gluestack that are available both on mobile and on web as well. You can provide, it's easily themable with different themes and also styles like this. And another thing that I really love about it is that it's built on top of Native Wind, which is basically Tailwind CSS for React Native, which is a library that allows us to use Tailwind classes to style our components. And I fell in love recently with using Tailwind to style my components. And yeah, that's what we're gonna use today. And in fact, Gluestack is the sponsor of today's video. So thank you very much, Gluestack, for making this possible. And let's get started and let's build this e-commerce application with React Native and Gluestack. Let's roll the intro. All right, so as always, I'm preparing for you a guide, a step-by-step guide with a little bit more information, code snippets that will help you move along and build this together with me. And you can access it at assets.notjust.dev/ecom. And go ahead, get the guide now, because it's going to have some of the things that we're going to need, such as the dummy data that we're going to use initially, and the step-by-steps instructions on how to do it. Let me quickly show you a demo of what we're going to build by the end of this video. Here is our application. Here is our authentication screens where we can create an account, sign in, sign up, and later we can go ahead and view products. As you can see, if I reload, we have really nice skeleton loading that improves the experience of the application. Then we can go ahead, check one item out. From here, we can add it to cart. We see it was added automatically there. We can check other items, add them to cart, and then manage the cart items. And when we are ready, we can press checkout to submit the order. So by the end of this video, you are going to build the same application together with me. And usually I try to make this tutorial accessible for anyone with any experience. So if you are new, I'm pretty sure you're going to be able to follow along. And if you have some experience, I'm pretty sure you're going to have something to learn today. And before we get started, I just wanted to make sure to point out that this e-commerce project is made out of multiple parts. In the first part, we have built a backend, a REST API in Node.js. So if you are interested in that as well, if you're interested in building a backend with Node.js, go ahead and check the links in the description. We're going to have links to all the parts there. And you can go ahead and build the backend yourself. Today, we're focusing on the mobile application with React Native and Expo. So everything, if you're interested only in mobile development, you can start here because I'm going to give you the access to the backend code, and I'm going to show you how you can run it so that you can start from this point as well. And next week, we're going to build a dashboard with Next.js that will allow admins and sellers to manage their products, to manage their orders. So these are the three parts, and today we are in part 2. And let's go ahead and get started. Hello everyone who is joining us live. How are you doing, guys? I'm gonna put this one here. So let's get started. To get started, we're gonna go here. Make sure you have a guide that you can access at assets.notjust.dev/ecom. And through this form, you're gonna get access to the guide that will have a couple of pages. Let's go to the second page, Full Stack Ecommerce Expo. This is for the mobile application. Here is the features, and here is the getting started. To get started, there are two options. If you want to follow all the builds and have the backend, the frontend, and the dashboard in the same folder, in the same main folder, what I recommend you do is either clone the repository that I'm providing you here, or if you already have API, go ahead and continue in that repository. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the repository. Here is the repository, and in this one we're going to have a couple of folders. At the moment we only have an API which contains the backend code, but later we're going to also have the mobile and the dashboard. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to open my terminal and navigate to the folder of my project. So that would be somewhere here, and it should be Full Stack Ecommerce. Now if I do ls here, this is literally the repository that you see here, the one with the folder API and the file Genesio. Let's go ahead, and while we are in this folder, in the Full Stack Ecommerce folder, let's go ahead and initialize a new application. I'm going to go ahead and do that using the npx create expo app tool. We're going to take at latest to take the latest version of this tool, and let's go ahead and give it a name. So if the previous one, the folder was API, let's call it e-commerce mobile. And this is going to be the mobile application. I'm going to do -- template, And let's do equal to TypeScript, or maybe just dash dash template. And if we do, isn't it dash dash template? Is it something else? Should be, oh, I have a typo here in the dash dash template. It should be template properly written. Now, after running this command, what we're gonna see is different templates that we can choose from. We can go ahead and start from navigation TypeScript that will already have Expo Router installed and set up and a couple of tabs there, but I usually like to showcase how you can also install and set up Expo Router. For that reason, I'm gonna choose blank TypeScript because this is the most future-proof template that is going to remain hopefully blank for a long time, so you have an easier experience to set up and configure things similar to what we have here at the moment. So now Expo is going to install and set up the dependencies for a new project, and after that we're going to be able to get it started. Okay, here we have it. So I'm going to run code dot to open in Visual Studio Code my whole project. My whole project means that I have here two folders, the API and the e-commerce mobile. Let me go ahead and open up right away a terminal. You can do that at the top, terminal, new terminal. And here, let's go ahead and do a cd e-commerce mobile to move into that directory. And let's start the development server with npm start. This will start the development server. I'm going to stop it, the previous one, and I'm gonna do it again. And in a second, we should see the QR code. If we see that, that means that everything was set up correctly from the Expo side. And the easiest way to run the application is going to be to download the Expo Go application from App Store or Play Store on Android or iOS device, on a physical device, and then scan the QR code. That option doesn't require any environment setup, like that's the only thing you need. You need notjust and that's it. However, if you want to run it on iOS emulator or Android emulator, you can do that as well, but for that you need to set up Xcode and Android Studio, and then you can press A or I to run it on these simulators. I'm gonna run it here, and what we should see initially is this open up app.tsx to start working on your application. Perfect. That is our starting point from a blank TypeScript template. I'm going to open up the directory of my mobile application. Here, e-commerce mobile, and here we have app.tsx. App.tsx currently is the entry point in our application. So if we change here to hello world, it should automatically refresh and hot reload on the right on our device. All right, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna open a new terminal and I'm gonna do a commit. So let's first check git status. We have a new folder in our repository. I'm gonna do git add and git commit create Expo application. And let me do a git push origin main so that you also have access to it. Now, the next step for us, if we look in the guide, we have cloned the repository, we have created a new Expo project, we run the project. Now it's time to install and set up Expo Router. Let's go ahead and search for Expo Router install and go into the documentation of Expo Router for the installation guide. We're gonna skip the quick start because this one explains how to choose a template, but we don't want easy routes. We're gonna go to the manual installation and we're gonna together set up and install Expo Router in our application. Long story short, Expo Router is the first file-based navigation system for React Native applications, for Expo applications. And if you have experience with other file-based navigation systems like Next.js, it's going to make a lot of sense for you. If this is the first time you're working with a file-based navigation system, what that means is by simply creating folders and files, Expo Router is looking at this structure, at this hierarchy of folders and files, and based on them is creating screens on the URLs like slash. So it's the concept is coming back from when we had like static websites where you had like literally like products slash something, and that would be your folders and file structure. And that's what we have right now in Expo as well. And if you have experience where after a bit of time, it makes a lot of sense and it's super easy to set up your navigation structure this way. So let's go ahead. Another thing is that Expo Router is built on top of React Navigation. So everything you know from React Navigation is going to be applicable here as well in terms of managing options, configuring navigators, and so on. So let's go ahead and install Expo Navigation by copying this command to install Expo Router and the other peer dependencies that it has. I'm going to go here and I'm going to make sure that when I do ls, I'm inside the Ecommerce mobile. So I'm going to do cd Ecommerce mobile. When I do ls, I should see at least like things like, I don't know, let's say babel.config, this Expo folder. Now when we are here, let's go ahead and install Expo Router, React Native Safe Area Context, and the other dependencies. I'm going to go back to this next part, and the next part is to change the entry point of our application. So in package.json, let's copy this main and go into our package.json of our mobile application and change the main here on line 4 to point to Expo Router. Now we need to add the schema of our project, and the schema is how we are configuring the deep links, or how Expo Router is configuring the deep links for us. Usually we do that in app.json, and usually I add it somewhere here at the top after the slug. For example, I will add the scheme is going to be not just ecom. Yeah, something like this. And based on this, the deep link for your application is going to be not just ecom, then like this. Let's go back here. What else do we need? We need to install React Native Web and React DOM if we want our application to automatically be available, supported for web as well. And in app.json, the bundler metro, but this is by default. So we are not going to change anything here. The babel.config is also configured for us automatically, so we're not going to change anything there as well. Just double check you have these presets, babel presets in your file babel.config.js. And that's it. After that, all we have to do is go back to where our server is running and restart it by clearing the cache as well. So I'm going to run npm start and then -- space -- clear. That will send this -- clear to Expo, and we should see here a warning, bundler cache is empty. And now if I'm going to reload my application or rerun it on my device, we should see the welcome screen from Expo. And this is the welcome screen whenever we do not have any screen set up yet. Because the way Expo is working is it's going to look for a folder called application. So if we go ahead and create a new folder here called app, and there we're going to add an index.tsx because we're working with TypeScript. I'm going to copy things from, maybe everything from app.tsx. Or let's not copy, let's simply do a export default function. We're going to export a component, and this component is going to become the screen that Expo is rendering as the first screen or as the home screen when we go to the URL slash. So if here I'm going to do a view, and inside that view, if I'm going to do a text and say home screen, and make sure to import text from React Native, and also make this text style font size 30, you're gonna see the title home screen at the top. So again, this is how Expo Router is working. We create files and they automatically become screens. If, for example, we're gonna add here a new file called, let's say, cart.tsx, and I'm going to be lazy and copy paste the code of our home screen to cart.tsx and just rename it, which we don't have to, but for the sake of being clear, let's rename it to cart screen and render a different text. What we're gonna see is on mobile, it's really hard to navigate from one screen to another without implementing some kind of link or button. On web, it would be very easy because on web, and I'm gonna show you that, if I press W in my terminal where Expo is running, that would run my application on web. And on the home screen, basically, when we are on localhost 8081/, we see home screen. But if I'm gonna go to /cart, I'm gonna see cart screen. And why cart? Because that is the name of our file. And if I would do literally anything else, it's going to say page not found. So as you can see, that's how easy it was to create a new screen. We just created a new file, we exported a component from it, and that screen became the screen when we navigate to that /something. And it works the same when we nest them in directories. So if we have another directory, that would be /cart, /product, /details, and so on. Now that we have this one, and while we're still on the Expo Router side, I'm going to explain one more concept. And that concept is called the layout. Because not the only other file, I mean, not the only, literally there are others, but another file that we have in our up directory is the _layout file. So what is this layout file? This, I'm going to export default function. I'm going to call it root layout, and in a second I'm going to explain what it does. So if I return here null, basically nothing, then we're going to see nothing on the screen, even if we are on the index or if we navigate to the cart. If I go ahead and render the slot from Expo Router, we're going to see the home screen there at the top. Maybe I'm going to render a stack here. So if I will render the stack, I see the home screen, but now the home screen has a header, which is coming from a stack navigator. And on the web, we're going to see the same here for the index. And if we go to /cart, the same header is there from the stack navigator. So one thing that we need layouts for is to set up our navigators. But in fact, like the concept of a layout is basically the file that is going to be rendered first for any route inside that folder. So when we go to index.tsx, what happens is first we render the layout, and then the layout is going to render the index. That's why when we return null here from a layout, we didn't see the home screen, because first we render the layout, and the layout should render the screen. And when we render the slot, we basically rendered only the screen without anything else. In a way, we are rendering the children. So here we see home screen. If I go to /cart, we see cart screen. And you see that this layout is applied for both index and for the cart. Basically, the layout is the user interface and the UI components and the UI logic that should be shared among all the screens in a group. And that's also where we, for example, can say that, hey, the cart and the index should be rendered inside a stack navigator, and that is going to make them a stack. And as easy as this, we can import tabs, for example, and by exporting tabs here, we're going to have bottom tabs for index and cart that are working both on mobile and on the web as well. Okay, now that we explained quite quickly, but hopefully the most important things about Expo Router. We're going to learn more about it as we use it. For now, I'm going to render here a stack. I'm going to remove the tabs and the slot import. Just to mention, the root layout is also the place where you usually configure global providers. If you need something at the global level, you're not going to do that at the index, because this is only the home screen. This is the code running only when we go to the slash. But the root layout is the one that is going to be rendered everywhere in the application. So that's where you're going to put the global providers. And if you need the screens to be a child of them, you're going to wrap the stack inside your providers. For now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do a git status, git add, git commit -m, set up Expo Router. Perfect. How is everyone doing? Hello, Sima from South Africa. Reporting on duty. Hello. Nice to see you here. How are you doing? Hello, Kamojelo, also from South Africa. Gabriel is asking, is it possible to scan your QR code in the project you're working on to track it live? I saw that's what Catalin Miron is doing. Let's see, probably yes, but I'm not sure if I want to, because sometimes it's going to work, sometimes it's not. Let me double check that. I would need to run the server with a -- tunnel to run it through ngrok. So let's see if it's going to work. And running it through the tunnel is going to make it available anywhere in the world. Now, if you have your Expo Go application, you can try to scan the QR code that you see here, or you can go ahead and I will paste in this URL that you can also add in Expo Go. Let's see, even if I am not on the same network, I'm going to test that here on my phone. If I scan this QR code, it's going to open it in Expo, and let's see if it's going to work. Yeah, it's actually working. Yeah, I see that people are bundling on Android, iOS. And it should also work on web, right? Because if I just open this, or no, probably no. I don't think it will. That's literally only on mobile. It tells me to open Expo Go. But I could create another ngrok to this local host so that it would be available as well. All right, so I see a lot of people are opening it up. Nice. Let's see how it's gonna go this time with this approach. Hopefully it's not gonna provide any challenges, but I'm happy to share the project with you and see on your device. And if you find like bugs or stuff like that, let me know. So let me see what would be the next steps. By the way, if you're new on this channel, and I know that most of you watching the video are new, because from analytics I see that 99.5% of you are not subscribed. So if you're not yet subscribed and you are enjoying watching the tutorial so far, that's what we do here. Let me introduce myself. My name is Vadim, and on this channel my goal is to help you build impactful mobile applications by building real project, by building fun project like this one, like this e-commerce application. So if you want to learn and build applications at the same time, make sure to subscribe to the channel. That would help us a lot. And yeah, thank you very much for doing that. Now let's go ahead and follow the next step, because the next step that we are going to do I'm gonna go into the guide, and this is the dummy data. So go ahead and download this products.json file, and we're gonna start by using some dummy data that I prepared for you to display products and so on. And a bit later, we're going to switch the dummy data with a real backend by fetching the data with React Query, or let's say TanStack Query. We're gonna fetch the data from the backend. But now, to simplify our process, to make it easier to get started and to focus on building the user interface, we're gonna go ahead and download the products.json, and we're gonna take them. Maybe I'm going to simply copy them from here. You can drag and drop a file inside your assets. I'm gonna put it here under products.json. And let's paste the JSON here. So it has a list of 10 products with their name, description, images, and that's it, and price. Later on, if you have your backend, I also prepare the same dummy data in the format of SQL queries that would insert this data in your table. So you can, if you have followed the first video and you want on your backend to have the same data, go ahead and run this insert commands, but I'm going to provide you more information about this a bit later. Just know where to find the SQL queries. Now we only need the products.json that we are gonna add into the assets, and that we can go ahead and import in our application index.tsx, because that's where we're gonna render the products. Let's do import products from assets products.json. Now, if instead of home screen, I'm gonna do, hey, please render the products at position 0 and the name of that product. If I'm gonna do that and reload, I see AirPods Pro. If I will change this not from 0 but to 1, it's going to be the next product. So that means that now we are able to, we have a list of products to work with, and the next step is going to be to go ahead and render this list of posts. To render a list of posts, or to render a list of items on the screen, we are using a component called flatlist imported from React Native. And let's go ahead and render it here as flatlist. And the flatlist has two required properties. One of them is data, which should be an array of things that we want to render. In our case, we want to render products. And the second one is render item, which should be a function that specifies how do we want to render one of these items. So I'm going to destructure the item here, and I'm going to render a text component that we have at the bottom. So simply copy paste it here. Make sure you have the same pair of brackets, very important. Here is our function in which we are destructuring the item, and then we can take, instead of products at position 1, we're going to do item.name. And the item is going to be the one of these items from the products array. If we open the products array, we see that render item is called, the function render item is going to be called 10 times, with each time with a different object that represents one of our products. So that's how we see these titles on the screen. At this point, I don't think we even need a view, so I'm gonna just leave the flat list as it is right now. And what I want to do next is, usually the render item part is going to be a reusable component. And that's another concept that we are trying to keep when building user interfaces with React, is that we're trying to split complex user interfaces into small reusable blocks. What we are going to try to achieve here is going to be this page where we render multiple products. And the list here is basically a list of the same component called product list item, a square that has the responsibility of rendering only one item with image and so on. So let's go ahead and do that. To extract it into a separate component in React Native, we're going to declare the custom component, and the custom component is simply a function. So let's call it product list item. The product list item is a function, I use the function keyword, so I don't need the arrows. And a function should return some JS text that we want to render when trying to render this custom component. What we want to render is going to be this text component. So I'm gonna take it from here and render it here. But the problem is that it depends, or rendering a product, we need to know some information about that product. So if I will take a second here and say just name, at the moment it doesn't need any data. To render this product list item, to render our custom components, we can do the same. I'm gonna delete the text. We're gonna do the same as we did with any other components. With open angle brackets, we're gonna render product list item, and because we don't need anything, any childs inside, I'm gonna close it right away. And just like that, we have 10 text components saying name, 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 because that's what our product list item is rendering. However, how do we send this item data to the product list item? That's what we use props for. So for example, this product list item, we're gonna send to the product list item the product that it needs to render, and that product is going to be our item that we are rendering at this point. Now, here is how we send from parent component down to a child component. And in the child component, here we can destructure them by the name. So we called it product here. We're going to destructure it as product here. And we can go ahead and instead of name, say, hey, I want to render product.name. Just like that, we have the title of the products dynamically passed from here. And later on, when we want to modify how one product is displayed, we're going to do that through here. The last thing I want to do now is I'm going to move this product list item to a separate file. A rule of thumb is to keep only one component per file, and usually another thing that I see a lot of developers make the mistake is creating the components in the app directory. That would be wrong because the app directory is only used for the screens. It's used by the Expo Router, so we only keep here screens and layouts, things related to navigation. For components, we can create a separate folder called components. And let's create here a file called product list item.tsx. Now, a product list item is going to contain this function that renders the product list item. So let's move it here, and let's make sure to also export default this function from here to be able to be used in other places. Let's add the import text component from React Native, and back in our index TSX from our application in our home screen, we need to make sure to import product list item from our components like this. And just like that, we separated the responsibility of rendering the list in the home screen to the responsibility of rendering one product in a separate component here. And in a second, we're gonna improve on this, we're gonna add types, we're gonna use Gluestack to style and render these things, and a lot more. So for now, we just made sure that we have dummy data, we made sure that we are rendering the list of products, and we know how to use reusable components. Let's go ahead and do a git add, git commit -m. This is the products list structure, because this is just the structure. Zuhair is saying the YouTube live stream has a 2-second delay because the hot refresh is updating here before the video live stream gets updated. So basically the hot reloading of the application is faster than the video on YouTube. I'm wondering how many of you have this application loaded. That would be interesting. Now back to our e-commerce application. What is going to be our next step? Our next step is going to be building the UI, building the user interface, and making this application look beautiful. For that reason, what we're gonna do is we are gonna go ahead and set up Gluestack. We're gonna use Gluestack as the component library for our user interface. And let's go ahead and press the link to go to the installation guide. Here in the docs, after installing and setting up Gluestack, we're going to be able to use all of these components that you can see here and even more to create our application. Stacks, inputs, images, texts, links, models, and a lot more. All right, let's go ahead and the installation. And let's follow step 1. There are 2 ways of setting it up. There is the CLI, which basically is a command line tool that helps us set up our project and install or download the components. And there is also the manual setup, because the CLI is helping us just configure things. And if you prefer the easy way, let's go with the CLI. If something is not working, you can double check that with manual to see like what exactly libraries it depends on, like the native wind, the configurations for the setup. For now, we're gonna go to the CLI. Let's set up a project. We need Node.js version 16 or higher. Let's go ahead and start by running npx gluestack UI init. We don't have to install anything because we are using npx. So let's go ahead. Let's clear things up. Let's make sure that we commit everything. And let's make sure that we are also in the mobile application in the Expo directory. While we're here, let's initialize Gluestack UI init. By running this command, Gluestack UI will detect what project we are running. So it detected that we are in an Expo project. Let's press yes. And these are the files that it's going to add or modify. Let's press yes. And after a bit of time, it's going to configure mainly the dependencies that it needs, such as the tailwind, the native wind, the TypeScript configuration, and some of the styling or the theming configuration for the Gluestack itself. We see some files being added. And in a second, we see done. Gluestack UI v2 was added in our project. And we see that, first of all, we have I'm going to show you what we have here. The important part is under the configurations, but you don't need to touch that, like the native wind configuration that will specify the configs for the native wind, TypeScript, and also the important part is under these components UI. The components UI is the folder where we're gonna download different components from Gluestack, and you're gonna see that a bit later. Now all we have to do is go into the application _ layout, and here in the we had to delete app.tsx because it thought that we are using app.tsx, and that's where it added the Gluestack UI provider. But in fact, this Gluestack UI provider, if we didn't have app.tsx, we are using Expo Router, and I said in Expo Router, the global providers are done at the underscore layout level. So let's go into application underscore layout and import here the Gluestack UI provider. And let's wrap it around our layout here. So we're gonna wrap our stack inside Gluestack UI provider. And we need to put the stack inside here. Just like that, now screens from the stack are going to have access to the UI provider, such as the current theme, like dark or light mode and so on. Now I can go probably in the index.tsx and let's try to render a button to see if everything works correctly. I'm gonna double check here. For example, we can go ahead and add a box by running npx gluestack UI add box. And this is the command we're gonna use to bring new components in our project. So if I run npx gluestack UI add box, what's gonna happen is that the UI is basically gonna copy paste the code for this component box under our components UI. Here we have a box. It's both for mobile and for the web. On mobile, we see that it will render a view. On web, it's going to render a div. It made sure that it handles all of these properties for us. And we can go ahead in our, maybe I'm going to, let me go ahead and bring a button, because a button is more exciting than a box. So I'm gonna go under components and I'm gonna go under the button. Let's press on the button component. And we're gonna see the installation guide for button. Again, npx gluestack UI add button. That would add a new component under the UI called button. And now we can use this button in our application. For example, in the index.tsx where we have a flat list. Should we do it in the flat list? Let's go ahead and do that. I'm gonna comment out the flat list for a second, just not to confuse you with it. And I'm gonna simply return here a button imported. That's the important thing. But the button is imported from our components UI button. And now we are rendering a button text, also imported from here, saying press me. Now if I reload, probably I will have to restart the server because I installed Tailwind. So let's do that again. And if you were checking on your device, here is the new QR code, and I'm gonna paste the new link in the comments. Let's do reload. Okay, we see the button, but we do not see the styles. So what happened with the styles? I think it was not imported there in the layout. So yeah, if we look back in app.tsx, and this is my bad because I forgot to delete app.tsx, we see that besides the global UI provider, it also imported this global CSS. Let's go ahead and take this import global CSS and add it in the underscore layout here at the top. If I save now, probably I have to restart the server again. I see you are downloading as well, so not sure if that helps me with the speed. Is it working? Probably you see it. Yes, it's working. Yes, it's working. Here we see the button press me. That is coming from this index. And right, just like that, we have a button component that is super reusable and very flexible. For example, we can use a different variant for like outline, and that is going to just add an outline on top of that. And because of the tunnel, my hot reloading is not gonna work super fast. Yeah, so now the variant of a button is outline. We can do a link. We can add a lot of other things. And everything that you can do with Gluestack components is very well documented here in the documentation. These are some general things like the size, the variant, like a link, primary, secondary, positive, negative, and ways to add icons on the right. Spinners as well you can add, for example, like this when something is loading. You can just add the icon without the text. So with the same button, instead of text, you're gonna do a button icon. And yeah, as you can see, super nice to use with a lot of possibilities. Now that I have this button here, let me go ahead and do a git add, git commit -m. I'm gonna commit the configuration, install Gluestack, git push origin main. And now that we have Gluestack installed, let's go ahead and use it properly to render our product here. So the product, we can render it in multiple ways. We can render it using the box from the layout in a Gluestack, and a box is a simple div that will also be take into consideration your theming, like light mode and dark mode. On mobile, it's a view. On the web, it's a div. But I'm going to go ahead and check the card component, which is specific for data display, which helps me render cards with information. It can have different things like outline, a field, or elevated, which adds some shadow, which we cannot see here, but on mobile it is. And if we scroll down to see some examples, we see different possibilities to use this card. You can even build this kind of profile with just this code. And here is a product card. Probably it has too much, like the buttons and so on, but let me go ahead and import it in our application. So let's copy this code that renders the card. Let's add it in our components product list item. Instead of a text, let's render this. Let's open the brackets and render this card. Okay, now we're gonna need a lot of things. First of all, we need to install the card component. So at the top, we see how we can do that. npx Gluestack UI add card. That will add a new component in our folder, in our UI Gluestack folder. So in a second, we see the card here. We can go ahead and import this card from UI.card, but I would recommend you to import it like this with components. Instead of using relative paths, I recommend you use the path aliases that we set up through TypeScript, and this way it's going to be easier to move things around, like in different folders, without breaking the imports. Now the image as well is a component from Gluestack, so I'm gonna do Gluestack add image. What else? Let me check like what other components we need to add. So the image, text can be from React Native, but we can add the text from Gluestack, which has some additional features to easier manage a text component. A vstack is a vertical stack. Vstack, is it called vstack? Let's find it here. Vstack, where is it? In the layout, vstack, and to import it to, yeah, it's vstack. A heading is a text that helps us render headers like H1, H2, H3, and so on. So let's do heading. Let's do a box, but we already have that. We have a button already, and that's it. So we need image, text, vstack, and heading. Only one component can be provided at a time. Please provide the component name you want to add or all. Let's do --all to add all of them. Should it be at the beginning? Let's do it one by one. Maybe I'm not adding it correctly. So let's do image first. Freaking is asking how old is he? He's a real senior. Senior Vadim. I like listening him teaching. I am how old I am. I think I'm 27. That's how old I was a couple of days ago. So besides this one, the image, what else we wanted? The vstack. And thank you. I really appreciate that compliment. Let's import the heading. And that's it. Now let's go ahead and import this image from our, I'm gonna do import image from components UI image. I'm gonna duplicate this line a couple of times. For example, here I want to import the vstack as vstack. I will remove the import of text from React Native because I want to import it from Gluestack, from UI text. I'm gonna import text. Do we have it? Or we didn't install it? Yeah, I didn't install it. Let's install add text as well. And for heading, is someone saying that I made a mistake? Let's see. Heading, let's import heading. Okay, so what else is the box and the button? Let's import box and let's import the button like this. And also from the button, I'm going to import the button text. Yep, perfect. Now if I reload, it will still show me the button because in my application index.tsx, what I have to do is I will remove rendering this button and I'm gonna uncomment rendering the flat list, the list of items. I'm gonna also clean up a bit there. And now if everything is worked correctly, we should see a list of these cards. All right, here it is, just like that. We have a list of product items. Let's go ahead in the product list item and replace some of the stuff with our own data. That will make it even better. For example, under the image, I'm gonna go ahead and replace this one with product.image. Boom, we should have the image there. Here, instead of fashion clothing, I'm gonna replace it with product.name. And instead of cotton kurta, I'm gonna replace it with product.price. I don't think we need the text here, which we could add as product.description. That would be fine. And if I reload now, because the hot reloading, I'm running through the tunnel and it's a bit slow. I saw a warning there to add alt property to the image component. So that would improve the alt. For the alt, we can say product.name and here image. So this is going to describe the image, very helpful for the accessibility of your application for people with visual impairment, for example. PMCG, does he still upload videos? How can the last one I came to see from 8 months ago or something? That's true, because we are mostly doing live streams. So just switch the tab to the live streams and you're gonna see that we're going live every single week with this kind of very in-depth tutorials. So that's where you can find us. The YouTube is focused around the video tabs. I'd really love to be able to set the live tab as the main page, because we only do live streams. We rarely do videos. So here we have a list of our products. How beautiful is that? On the image, I can also do a resize mode. Is it resize? Resize mode equal to, let's do what? Contain. To contain the whole image so that we can see the whole image instead of covering the whole space. Again, this will require a reload. Hello from Somalia. Hello. And for some, for a split of a second, the styles were not there, but that's only in development. Now we see the product list here. Perfect. What I want to do now is to make sure that I add them in 2 columns, and that is going to happen under the application index.tsx. Here under flat list, I'm going to provide the number of columns or num columns to 2 to specify that, hey, I want the flat list to render in 2 columns. If I reload, it's probably not going to work out of the box, but with some adjustments, we're going to make it work. So we see that I see there some content on the right, but it's not exactly what I wanted. What I wanted is probably a flex1 property on my card to say that, hey, take and split the available space with your siblings on the same row. So will that fix? Let's see. Flex1. And yes, that actually worked, and it correctly shares the space with the siblings. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to adjust some of things here. For example, I don't need a margin on the card. Usually, I like to manage the margin and the spacing between items. If I remove it, there is no spacing between items. But usually, I like to manage that one on the list itself. On the list, we can do that with a gap property on the content container style, or if we want to do that through native Win classes, we can do content container class name, and I'm going to do gap 2. And that should add gap on one of the axes, either vertical or horizontal. And then we're going to do another style. Yeah, that added some spacing between the rows, as you can see here. To add spacings between the items in the same row, we're gonna add the, how is it called, the column wrapper class name. So every column, which actually should be every row, is wrapped into a view. So if we add here a gap 2, that is going to add spacing between items here. All right, here we have it. Everything looks nice now, not a lot of spacing. Perfect. I like how it looks right now, But I will most probably simplify it a bit because I don't really want buttons and description in this place. But where I would like these things is going to be on the product details page. So I'm gonna keep it a bit for now like this because it's going to help me copy paste some of the code from here on the product details page, and then I'm gonna clean up here a bit. So for now, it looks really nice, but a bit later, we're gonna simplify it to only show image, name, and price. Maybe the product price should have a $sign in front, but everything else, I think I really like how it looks now. And if you want buttons on this page, like feel free to keep it as it is right now. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do git add, git commit -m. Let's do product item UI using Gluestack. That was quite easy to implement. And now what I'm going to do is let's go ahead and create the product details page. When I press on one of these products, I want to open the product in its own separate page, as we can see here on this screenshot. Let's do that by first creating a new screen for our product details page. I'm gonna do that by creating a folder called product.tsx and then a file inside that, not product.tsx, but simply product. And then inside there, I'm gonna create a file called details.tsx. Let's go ahead and export default a function because we need to define our screen, and we're gonna call product details screen. And this screen is going to return, let's return simply a text saying product details. I'm going to go ahead in the details and import this text from our UI. So import text, not from React Native, but I'm going to import it from components UI/text. Now, how do we navigate there? Like on web, we know how to navigate there. We can go and open our project on the web. And to navigate there, we first add /product because that's the screen, that's the folder. Oh, actually it works on the web as well. So here is the link for the web page, if you're interested. And look at that, we have our products displayed on the web as well. With a little bit of adjustments, we can make it look really nice with even multiple columns. Amazing. But what I wanted to show you here is if we navigate to /product/details, we're gonna go into this product details page. /product, that's the folder, and /details, that's the file. Now the question is, how do we know what product are we supposed to show here? What product did we navigate to? Well, usually on applications, let's say on Twitter, if you... Okay, let me not do the Twitter example maybe. Usually, how it happens is we are passing some unique identifiers directly in the URL. That's very common on the web. That's not very common on mobile, but with Expo Router, this is now also something that we do on mobile. So for example, if we want to navigate to the product with ID 1, we're gonna do /product/1. And that one is going to say, hey, give me the product with ID 1. At the moment, it says that it's unmatched route because we need to do some changes to add this dynamic path parameter. Basically, a variable inside the URL. To add a dynamic path parameter, we're gonna rename the details page to the following syntax. It's going to be square brackets, and inside it the name of the variable, for example ID. And now everything that we have in that segment after /product, it's going to become the ID. And to get access to this ID from our component, we can do that using use local search parameters. And if I render the ID here on the screen, let's see what's going to be displayed. If I reload the same page with /product/1, we should see product details 1. If I do /product/2, we're gonna see product details 2, and so on. So now this part of the URL is going to be parsed and sent as the variable with the name ID. That's nice because that's going to help us identify the product, and then here maybe search, find that product and render the details of it. But how do we navigate in our application? If I reload, Gabriel is asking, quick question, the backend from last week was already finished, right? Nothing else was added in this live stream. Yeah, in this live stream we didn't touch the backend yet. I actually had created a very small commit behind this after the live stream, but I'm gonna explain you, like it's a super small, like a fix. So what I wanted to do next is how do we navigate to the product details screen from when clicking on one of these products? Well, to do that, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go into the components product list item and want to say that, hey, when we click somewhere here, we want to navigate to the product details screen. The easiest way to do that would be to render a link component from React Native, from Expo Router, I mean. So let's import link from Expo Router and say open details. In the link, we are providing the href, similar to how you would do on web, for a tag, for a link tag. And if we do product/123, and if I reload now, then our cards, or basically all our product list items at the top should have a small text saying open details that we can press on it after loading the styles. And if we press on open details, we're gonna be navigated there to the /products123. It doesn't work, but that's just a matter of reloading it so that the screen will be picked up by Expo Router. And while we're waiting for the load, I will make sure that this 123 is also dynamic. Oh, it's not product, but it's product. That's why we have unmeshed route. And now let's also do the dynamic 123 because we don't want hard-coded 123. We want this to be the product ID. We have a product, that product has an ID, we just have to put it here. I'm gonna do that through template strings by declaring this string with backticks, and instead of 123, I'm gonna add here a variable called product.id. So we navigate to /product/id. Now if I reload, does it always take long to reload after changes? I think that from the combination of using the tunnel so that you can also have access to, and probably some configuration from Tailwind or Native Wind, that's why it's a bit longer today. Usually it's super fast, but I'd have to look into that, like what's happening. I believe that it's the tunnel, but maybe something else. So now if I press on open details, we see product details 1. If I open here, product details 2, product details 3. That means that we are correctly linking to the URL of a specific product details. But what I want is not a text open details, but whenever we press on this component. What I can do is I will take this link and I will wrap it around the whole card. I'll remove open details, and the closing of a link is going to be after we close the card. This way, we wrapped the card inside the link. Now it's not gonna work properly, and too bad that it's taking a bit of time to reload. Let me double check if I'll turn off a bit the tunneling so you're not gonna have access to it on your device, but I need it to run a little bit faster. And let's see if that would solve a problem. It's still like the tailwind probably is going to make it a bit slower. Hello, Javier. How are you doing? Why is your name highlighted like that? Javier has almost half a million subscribers. Oh wow, hello. I just accidentally opened your profile. Hello Tardine from Gabon, how are you doing? Why my application is not loading? Come on, I need it faster in order to show you all the steps. Hello Mahmakbek from Turkmenistan, how are you doing? Hello Christian from Mexico. So as you can see, the link was added. We can press and it will work, but the styles have been broken because the flex one now is not on the link, like not on the parent component here. So what we have to do is we're going to use a component called asChild, and that will tell link that, hey, use this child as the component that you're going to render. Now the styles are back, but the functionality is broken because we cannot press. And that's because when using asChild, the link will send here to the child, in this case to the card, the onPress event. And because the card does not have a onPress event, we're gonna wrap it around a pressable. A pressable from React Native. That is a normal view that can handle press events. We're gonna close it here between the card and the link. And we're going to add here the class name to this pressable, flex1. And that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. So if I reload, or actually now the hot reloading was working properly. Now the styles are back working, and if I press, I'm navigated right away there. Perfect, exactly what I wanted. So now with a link, with a pressable, we can have these press events and open the product card. Lastly, on the product details, what we need to do is, having this ID, let's go ahead and search for the product. Later, we're gonna fetch the details of a product from the server, from the API, but now I'm going to still use the products from our assets, products.json. And because we are using these products both in our list and in the details, most probably we are going to find that product by looking through products and searching for one product that has the ID equal to the ID that we got here. It says that it's something with TypeScript probably, but we're gonna check that here. If product was not found, let's render a text saying, let's return a text saying, oops, product not found. Otherwise, let's render not by ID, but right away product.name. Now if I press on one of these items, oops, P doesn't exist. Oh, I forgot here the arrow for the function. If now I'm gonna press product not found. Why? Because I have here triple equal sign, which will check based on types as well. The ID from the URL, if I hover here, is going to be either a string or an array of strings, and you can specify that ID is in fact a string, not an array of strings. So now it's going to be a string, but in our assets, the ID here is a number. So all we have to do is either only use two equal signs or cast the ID here to a number so that we can compare numbers to numbers, apples to apples. Now if I go ahead and we already see their AirPods Pro, if I look at the Apple Watch, I see the name here, which means that it correctly found the product and is rendering the name there. All we have to do is probably go ahead and instead of returning a simple text, I'll return everything that we have here in the product list item, this card. You might think that hey, copy pasting is not very good in this case, but I'm going to come back and make the product list item thinner. And it's not going to be really the same component. For now, I'm going to just go to product list item, and from card, I'm not going to need the linkable and pressable, but the card all the way down. I'm going to copy it from here. And to the details page, I'm going to render this card like this. Now, let's also import, copy paste these components that we imported from components, like card, image, vstack, and so on. I'm going to do that here at the top. The text, we already have it there, so remove one of them. Now, if I go there, we should see the card like this. It's already better. Now it's just a matter of adjusting a little bit the styles here. For example, in this case, the card probably does not need a max width, because max width specifies what's going to be the maximum width of this component. Maybe it needs, but we can make it even larger, like 560, so that on mobiles it's going to be full screen. Everything else looks okay here. I really like how it looks. Damn, it's so nice already, and it took us like literally a couple of minutes to do that. Love it. Yeah, finally what I wanted to say is that I'm gonna go back to the product list item, because in this list I want to simplify a bit how we render things. I don't need the last box with buttons, so the button wish list and add to cart. I'm gonna check the box and I'm gonna select it and remove it. Make sure you do that same here. We get rid of buttons, and I'm also going to get rid of a product description. I don't need it here. I'm just gonna keep the name and the price. I'm gonna keep it really clean. And maybe some of the spacings. Let's think. I don't think I need the vstack, so I'm gonna remove the vstacks around the heading. So this one and this one, the closing as well. So we only have a text and a heading and an image, obviously. So now our product list item component is quite simple. It's a card that renders an image that has a text for the name and a heading for the price. And that's what we see here. Right? Right. Let me see if everything is nice here. Maybe we can clean up some imports. For example, the button, the box, the vstack is not needed in the product list item. Yeah, that looks much better right now. And if I go here, that's where we have more information. In this component, probably what I can do, but I can keep it like this. I think that's pretty nice. We have add to cart that is going to help us. No need to reinvent the wheel. Because in the preparation I had a slightly bit different styles, but for now I think it's good right like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do git status, git add git commit -m product details screen. Vadim, please save a video. Yes, obviously we're gonna have this video on the channel. All our live streams are saved on the channel. You can see them. The villain is asking what GitHub extension you use where you can see the blame and your photo. Don't really remember. I don't know. 1 minute ago. Think that should be probably. Oh, come on. The Git lens. Maybe it's Git lens. Speaking about the packages or the configuration, Gluestack has here, after installation, a page called tooling setup. And if you want some packages some extensions that will help you use Gluestack and also Tailwind easier, for example, having Tailwind classes autocomplete like this rounded, and you have all of the possible options. You can check the documentation here. For example, for IntelliSense, specifically around Tailwind, you can install this Tailwind CSS extension. I have it installed. That's where I get this autocomplete for Tailwind classes. We have a prettier plugin. This is optional as well, and that's going to help you move faster. There is also a VS Code extension specifically for Gluestack, and you can see it here. And it has a lot of snippets that you can use. For example, just adding GS alert, it's going to add the alert and so on. So very handy as well to move really faster after you master all of the components that you have there. And there is also the Figma UI kit that you can use to design your own product. Maybe you can give it to your designer and say like, hey, this is the components that we can use, move them around and create the user interface for the application. All right, really loving the Gluestack so far and how easy it is to build this cross-platform application, because not only it will be available on mobile, it also works really nicely on the web as well. So let's see it here. Maybe we're gonna have to do some adjustments, like setting some constraints like width and height. Here we have the list. If I open it up, here we have product. Yeah, I think before we move on, I'm going to adjust some of the things. But before I do that, I need a very small break. So I'm gonna come back in a second and we're gonna continue. Give me just 2 seconds. All right, I'm back. So, how are we on time? All right, we have a lot of people joining us live today. What's up, everyone? How are you doing? Okay, so what's going to be our next steps here? Should we adjust a little bit the styling? For example, first of all, I'm going to reset this to 100. Yeah, like this. And what we see, first of all, let's go to the details page of a product. And in this case, we see that because in the, let's say, application product ID here, the card itself has a maximum width of 560 pixels. That's why it sets up like this. Probably I'll just add here margin X auto, and that would add margin to the left and to the right auto, and hopefully that will put the product in the center of the screen. Will it? Yes, it will. Should I make the whole page white? Well, basically these are just design choices that you can do to manage how you do all of these things. What's up with the image here? Is it from the MX? Yeah. So whenever adjusting for web, make sure that we're not breaking it for mobile. And in this case, W full, that's the problem, right? Instead of MX auto, I'm going to probably add here a box that will represent the whole page. I'll close it after this one, and through some properties like class name, let's do bg red just to see where the box is. Okay, the box is like this. If I'm gonna add a flex one to this box, it should take the full page. Yes, that's true. And I'm gonna do items center to center the card in the middle. That's good. Maybe even a padding 3 to add some spacing on the top and on the bottom. Maybe the card of the item does not have to be 560, that's too little. Maybe 960, a bit more. Come on. What? Max width 960. Why it's not updating here? Oh, because we need to say width full, to say take all available space but not more than 650 or 960, for example. Come on. Okay. Now it's better. And let's see on mobile if everything is still working. If I go here, yeah, yep, that's exactly what I wanted here. So I can go ahead and remove the background color red from here. And if I open it up, here it is, perfect. The detail screen looks okay on mobile, looks nice on web as well. Now the index screen. The index screen on mobile has 2 columns. On web, what I want to do is, well, let's go to the application index where we have this flat list, and let's give this class name to this flat list. If I do bg red 300, for example, let's see what is the sizes of the flat list itself. Okay, it's full screen. What I want is I want this flat list to be a maximum size of, let's say, 960. So I'm gonna say, hey, flat list, your maximum width would be 960. Okay, that's good. Or you can maybe not do it at the class name, but add the content container style, only the container that wraps around the content. So that this way the scroll bar remains at the right, but the container that has the content is here. That's good. Now what we can do, let's try with margin X auto to put it in the center, and with with full to make sure that it tries to take all the available space, but not more than this maximum that we provided. So on mobile looks nice. On web, it looks also nice. What I'm going to do is in the product list item here, I think I'm going to simply remove this max width on the product itself and allow it to expand on the web to take all the available space like this. And maybe on the web, we could increase the number of columns. For that, you can probably take the width, the screen width. Maybe there should be a better way, but I can take width using the use dimension hook, use Windows dimensions from React Native, and say if width is more than, I don't know, what would be like a normal size width more than 700 pixels. Let's use 3 columns, otherwise 2 columns. So on the web, we see 3 columns. On mobile, we see 2 columns. And if we're gonna make it smaller, we cannot change the number of columns on the fly. We need to change, yeah, that would be a bad thing in production because we cannot change the number of columns on the fly. And the recommendation is to change the key property of a flat list when this is happening in order to trigger a re-render. So let's save number of columns into a variable and add the flat list a key property saying let's just send the number of columns. This way, when this is happening, it will, when we go from 3 columns to 2 columns, we are re-rendering the flat list from scratch, like all together. So now on a small device, even on web, it's going to be 2 columns. If we move to a larger device, it re-renders the flat list with 3 columns, and we have it like this. Perfect. Now we can go back and remove the background color red from our flat list, and it will look nicely on mobile and on the web as well. We go here, boom, 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 boom. Nice, really love it. And before we move, another small detail but quite important is about titles of our screens, because now we see index and on the details is product/ID, and that's because by default Expo Router will take the name of that screen, like the name of that file, and add it as the header. We can adjust that by going to the root layout and expanding the stack to have a closing and opening tag, and then rendering stack.screen component. And by targeting the name, by specifying here the name of our screen, for example, index, we can adjust the options. And these options is coming from React Navigation. Sorry, guys. These options are coming from React Navigation, and you can use any options that you used in React Navigation, such as title. Let's do shop. And the home screen is going to be shop. Now, if I duplicate this one, but for the second time, I use here product/ID, that's the name of the screen. I'll do here product. And if I go here, it's still shop for some reason, but it should be after re-rendering. If I navigate there, it's going to be product. And you can also dynamically do that by rendering stack screen component right in our screen, for example, product ID. If I go ahead and render somewhere here the stack screen without specifying the name because we know what screen we're targeting, here we can provide dynamic names such as product.name. So now if I go here, we need to import stack from Expo Router, and we're gonna have dynamic titles based on the product name. here Apple, here AirPods Pro, Dyson, and so on. And on the web, it also works like this. So someone is asking, how many times is that going to trigger re-render as well? Will the var not get recalculating on every re-render? That's the index, here the number of columns. The number of columns will re-render when the home screen re-renders. So it's going to be recalculated every time when the home screen re-renders. But let's think what will trigger a home screen re-render. Basically, not a lot of things unless we are adding like some React context providers at the root level. Because let's do here console log re-render and see that in practice. If I reload the application, we should see one re-render. That's the initial time. Come on. We're gonna see one re-render, the first one. If I go there and come back, it's not re-rendering because nothing changed, no data changed here. So it really depends on how you're using it. I'm not saying that it's never gonna re-render. It is going to re-render when the width changes. So if I bring the web version here, let's bring it here so that we can see both the console of re-rendering and this one. We're gonna see that as I change the width, at one point we're gonna trigger another re-render. Not sure if it's actually gonna happen. I need to reload probably. Web logs will appear in browser console. Yeah, I need to check inspect console. Okay, that means that I can move to another screen because I'm gonna have logs here. So let's try to reload. We're gonna see one re-render here. I'm gonna clear it out. And as we will change the width, yeah, indeed, it changes and it re-renders every time we change the width. Does that mean that our product list items also re-render? Console log re-render product item. Yep, it re-renders product items as well. So probably we have to memoize the items if we want to optimize it. So even though our index component re-renders because the width is changing, at least our flat list, our items in the flat list will not change if the item is not being changed. So with by memoizing the component, we can fix that problem. And probably the way I'm using the width here is not a proper way, because maybe for Gluestack, like use breakpoint value. Default small. Look, let's try it. I haven't used it, but let's try to use the use breakpoint value. So let's do, in this case, let's do const number of columns. I'm gonna do that. Number of columns equal use breakpoint value. And I think I should install it, right? Let's see. Installation. Let's run npx Gluestack UI add use breakpoint value to add this hook here. Probably saying it's cool to see you trying Gluestack. Last time I tried it, it was in beta and very broken. Yeah, like nowadays it's much more. I didn't have any issues with it, so because it's also based on Tailwind, there are some also issues that are coming from native Wind itself. But native Wind has now is being updated. The version 4 is really nice. It's fixing a lot of bugs, and it's making using Tailwind in React Native a really nice. So let's go ahead and import this use breakpoint value from, where was it added? Use import components UI utils. Has no exported named use breakpoint. How is it called? Use breakpoint, like this. And we're gonna provide here, for example, the default value. Number of columns for by default is 2. On small devices, so let's do by default 3, but on small devices 2. And now take number of columns and use it there. It still uses 3. But behind the scenes it still uses use window dimensions. Let me think about it. So default is, so default is 2, and from small upwards is going to be 3. So now it's 2 here, and it should be 3 here, 3 here, and maybe let's do MD. Let's see what other options, breakpoints. Breakpoint value, breakpoints, screen size and default. And the screen size is Tailwind theme screens. So that should be in our Tailwind config. If we look at the screens, will it be L or XL? Let's see. Okay, so that's working. I'm just trying to figure out the other breakpoints. Okay, XL4. So on big screens now we have 4 columns. As I move down on a iPad, for example, we're gonna have 3. As I move down, we're gonna get to 2 of them. And that's a much better way of using different values based on breakpoints, because we don't have to calculate this ourselves. It simplifies it. I don't think it solved the problem of re-render product items. As we move, yeah, it re-rendered the product items. So for that, we probably have to memorize. Oh, I see how use breakpoint values work now. Yeah, we basically specify different values at different screen sizes. So by default is 2 columns in this case, small devices, 3 columns, and extra large is going to be 4 columns. There might be also extra small and so on, where you can put 1 column. But anyway, that's working. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to like when we do not have actually 4 items in a row, we are going to take all the available space, like these ones, like this and this. I know there is a easy fix like with a flex property. I don't remember that one right now, so if you know, let me know, maybe I can fix it, but I don't want to spend a lot of time fixing this small issue. So what I'm gonna do, because we still have a lot of things to implement today, so I'm gonna do a git add, git commit fix web and make it responsive. Perfect. How long did the live stream start? When did it start? It started 2 hours ago. And we have 170 people live. Oh my God, that's a lot. Hello everyone. How are you doing, guys? Hopefully we bring the new React compiler to React Native sometime soon. It has great auto memoizing features. Yeah, that's true. Like that's why I'm not trying to get into a lot of memoization right now, because with a React compiler that is going to be available in React Native sooner or later, probably quite soon, that issues are going to be solved because it's all these components will be memoized by default. Oh, Pro Evels is saying use media query. Use media query, that's another thing. Use media query is a custom hook that helps detect matches between a single media query or multiple media queries. React Native does not natively support media query, so use media query is still limited. So that would be medium, small, large, and extra large. Is mobile. Yeah. In Tailwind itself, like these things are much better, but that's the limitations of a native side of media queries on mobile. Okay, so we have our shop. We can navigate products. I think we should move because we still have a lot of things to implement, such as the cart. So let's go ahead and start by implementing the cart. And I'm gonna start by implementing some of the user interface for the cart, and then we're gonna get into some of the logic by using Zustand for the global state to manage the information about the cart. And I remember someone was asking me if we are using React Query, does it still make sense to use a global state management library like Zustand? And that's a very good question. And in most cases, I would say no, or I would say don't try to use a global state management library just because everyone has or everyone is talking about global state management libraries. Because you only need that in specific cases, in cases where you have to manage local state. If your application mostly depends, and it will mostly depend on remote data that you're fetching from the server, and your job is just to synchronize data locally with information from the server, in that case, React Query is enough. You don't need anything more. And especially you don't need to put a global state library like Zustand on top of React Query or a TanStack Query. So in that case, I would say no, you don't. Why in this application we're gonna need is, even though most of the data is going to be remote data, like products, orders, and so on, the information about the cart, like how many items you added to the cart, what's the total of your cart, this is data that is not yet on the server. This is data that is still local, and we want to build it locally, share it with multiple components in our application, and only after we press submit order, it's going to be sent to the server through the React Query. So in this tutorial, we're going to use TanStack Query to manage and synchronize remote data, and we're going to use Zustand as a global state management just for small parts of our application, and specifically managing the cart. So let's see, based on the plan, where we are at. So we have products list, product details page, we have shopping cart authentication. Then we're going to integrate with backend, and then we're going to implement the shopping cart functionality. Should we first integrate with the backend, with a TanStack Query? I think that would be a smart option, because I don't want to build the UI of a cart first and then cover the backend and then do the shopping cart. Let's cover the TanStack Query first to make sure that we integrate with the backend and we are fetching data from the backend. We are fetching products from the backend. We are fetching product details from the backend. And then we are going to go into the shopping cart to implement both the UI and the global state management. I think that would be a better approach. And let's go ahead and integrate with our backend. First of all, I would like to showcase a little bit the backend that we're going to integrate with. And the backend, we have built it in the previous live stream. You can check it in the link in the description. And during that video, we have built a REST API that we can see here under the API folder in our project. Also, if you haven't, check out the source code that you can find also in the description. I'm going to go ahead and navigate to the API folder. And the API folder, if you are fetching the data, needs an environment file. Before we do the environment, let's go ahead and do npm install to install the dependencies of our API. Our API is built with Express, and it is a REST API. We're going to see that in a second. So after installing the dependencies in the environment variable, what we need is the database URL. And having a database URL, we're going to be able to run this API locally. The database URL that we use, the database provider that we used is genesio.com. And with Genesio, we have deployed our Express API to the cloud. And also I'm going to show you how that was done. But if you create an account here and go to your dashboard to the databases and do create database, you're going to have a Postgres database. Then go ahead and click connect. Take the database connection URL from here, add it in your env file. If you don't have it, go ahead and create a .env file and add the database underscore URL and paste in your Postgres URL that you've got from Genesio. And when that is done, you can run npm run dev to run API in development here. If you go ahead, it's listening on port 3000. So as simple as going into a browser window, opening localhost 3000, you should see hello world. But if you go to the /products, you should see, if this is the first time you are opening the database, in your case, you're going to see an empty array because you're not going to have any products. So what you can do is you can go back to our guide. At the top, in the dummy data, I have these SQL queries. So if we copy these SQL queries and go back to Genesio, connect to your database by going to database, here under your database, do actions, view data, that is going to open an SQL editor. So what you can do is you can comment everything out and paste your SQL queries here, run the query, and for some reason it shows like this, but after you reload and do select everything from products and run the query, you're gonna see not ordered, but from products. If you run the query, you should see already some data. And now when you send a GET request to your API/products, you're gonna see this information. So that's the important part. We need to have some products that we are going to fetch in our application. Also, in the previous video, I showed how to use the Funder client extension from VS Code to test our REST API. And when building that API, I have created all the requests that our API supports, starting from like, let's say, where is it? List products, and that is sending the request to /products. If I go ahead and send the request, we see the information. There is also get product by ID that sends the request, get request to products, and then the ID. For example, if I take an ID from there, for example, 37, and do send, we see details about product with ID 37. So that is our API running locally that we have to integrate in our React Native application. If you want to deploy your application, it's super easy. All you have to do is go into your root directory. I'm going to uncomment npm run dev. And I'm going to go into the root directory of my project where we see Genesio.io here. With Genesio.io, maybe first I have to, do I have to build it first? No, I don't think so, because everything is going to be built by Genesio. So being in the root directory where we have Genesio YAML, all I have to do is install npx install Genesio globally, and then do Genesio deploy. That will take our API, package it in a serverless function, and deploy it to Genesio in a very simple steps. At the end, we're gonna get a URL that is available and accessible by anyone. And the URL that we're gonna get is here. This is the URL. If I copy it and go to browser and send a request there, we see hello world. If I add /products, I should see a list of products. And this is a Chrome extension. Like usually you should see a raw format of the product. In my case, it's just parsed. But that means that now our API is hosted using Genesio. We can see there under projects, we're going to see our full stack e-commerce. We have our function, and we can also check the logs to see if something is going wrong, like what is happening. So there are two options. Either you're deploying it with Genesio and you don't have to run the API locally and you are integrating with Genesio, or you are running the API locally and you're integrating with a local API. Because now all we have to do is in our e-commerce mobile, I'm going to create a variable called .env, the environment file, the environment variables for our Expo application. Here for environment, I'm going to add an easy way for me to connect my mobile application either with a local API or with a remote one by adding here API underscore URL. But to make an environment variable accessible through Expo, to make it public, we need to prefix it with Expo underscore public API URL. So here, if you're running your API locally, I'm going to add the Genesio here. This is my production variable. And if you're running it locally, it's going to be, if I do cd API npm run dev, it's going to be listen port 3000. So it should be localhost 3000. I'm going to copy it and paste it here. So this is going to be the environment local. This is going to be environment production. I think I'm going to leave a production, and I don't have to run the API locally. I just show that that's also possible. And maybe sometimes if something is failing and you need more error messages, by running it locally, it can give you this information. So now I'm going to continue using the API that I deployed to Genesio, the deployed one, and I have it here. The URL, after when you watch this video, the URL most probably is not going to be the same. Maybe I'm going to delete it, or maybe I'm going to keep it. I cannot promise keeping it because if it's going to be flooded by requests, probably I'm going to have to hide it. So I recommend you clone the API, create your own Genesio account. It is free. It has a generous free tier, and deploy it on your account. Take the URL from your project here. This is the URL of your function, and use it as you see fit. Now it is time to integrate our React Native application with our backend. And the first step that we need to do is we have to send this request, get request to /products to get a list of products. I'm gonna create a folder we called API inside my mobile that is going to have some helper functions to fetch data from the API. There, I'm gonna create a file called products.ts, and let's start by doing export const list products, which is going to be actually I really prefer functions more recently for these top level things. Export function list products, and when we call this list products, as I said, I simply want to fetch my backend URL /products. So the backend URL, we can get it through the, let's call it API URL equal process.env through environment. And we called it in our environment Expo public API URL. So let's do that here. Expo public API URL. So this part is going to be replaced by the API URL, and we just need the /products. Let's go ahead and do that. Response equal. I'm going to use fetch. Fetch that is available in most of the environments out there, in browser, in mobile, in Hermes, everywhere. So this is the most basic way of sending a request. So with fetch, I'm going to fetch the API URL /products. And let's try to get the data of that response by doing a wait res.json. So we are transforming the body to a JSON, and let's do return data, or maybe even console log data. Console log data. Just for you to make sure, like if something is not working, I recommend you go ahead and do a console log API URL to make sure that the API URL, or in fact like the whole thing that you're fetching, go ahead and console log it so that you can grab that URL, open it in browser and see what's happening. Like if something is not working, it's going to be visible by console logging. Now, this list products, I want to call whenever we get on the shop page. We want to list products. So in our application index.tsx, at the top here, I need to run that list products when we mount the component. For that, we need a use effect. And in the use effect, I'm going to have it with empty dependency list to run it when the component mounts. I'm going to start the request list products from my API products. Let's see what's happening. Let's open the console log where the shop is running, and let's reload. We see that the URL is initially it was undefined products, and that's always the case because most probably we need to restart the whole server for the environment variables to take effect. So we saw that something was not working, but then all of a sudden the URL was okay and the data was actually here. So if that's not the case for you, the first step, go ahead and restart the server. And when restarting the server, Expo will load the .env file, and actually we see here that it loaded the Expo public API URL. Now we should be able to reload to trigger this list products function. It shows me I'm going to comment out this render product item from components. Here I don't need it anymore. But it shows me the URL that it's fetching and actually the data that we need. So everything works fine so far. We are sending the right request. I'm gonna remove the console logo again already. We're fetching the products, and the data that you see here in the browser is the data that we get in our application. Now, all we have to do in the index is to go ahead and declare a state variable, get the data from the list products, store it there, and so on. That would be how you would normally do. Like you define state products, set products. Then you have here to define a async function and do a wait, get data, then set products. That would be only managing the data. Already like a lot of code, but in a second you're also going to, maybe let's actually do that so that I can show you just a little sneak peek. So const fetch products equal async, because in a use effect we cannot run async logic. Let's do data equal list products with a wait, then set product with data, and here we just call fetch products. And just this is the minimum thing that we need to load data and store it in state so that we can use it here instead of taking it from the assets product. So now if I'm gonna reload, for a second it's going to be loading, but then this is actually the data from the backend. And you're gonna see that because it's double, like I ran that command multiple times. So we're no longer importing it from the asset bundle, but we are importing it, we're fetching it from the server. Okay, that's good. But the next step is, as I said, this is like a very basic way of fetching data. We need a use effect, we need an async function, we need to call that async function, and that's only for the data. But we also need the loading states. So for that we need a new state variable, loading, and so on. But then we need also error handling. For that we need another state variable, error, and so on. So as you can see, managing this data fetching ourselves is getting harder and like harder to manage. Like it's a lot of boilerplate that we have to write over and over again. You know, all the screens we're gonna have these multiple states, use effects, data fetching, managing everything for ourselves. So that's not very good. For that reason, TanStack Query exists. So with TanStack Query, we can do all of this thing and get additional benefits. But let's talk about the bare bones, like the basic things of doing the data querying. So let's go ahead and open the documentation. And I'm gonna jump into the installation and I'm gonna install TanStack Query with npm. Let's go ahead. Make sure you are in the Ecommerce mobile and let's install TanStack Query here. Is this live? Yes, this is live. He'll interact with the chat ever so often. Yeah, I'm trying to stay like very focused to deliver like a cohesive experience, but from time to time I'm stopping to interact with the chat. Anyway, now that we have installed TanStack Query, what we can do is we can replace all of this code with one use query hook. So use query, import it from TanStack Query. I'm probably pronouncing it very weirdly, but go with it. So using the use query, we are able to send a query to the server. And the query has two required properties. One of them is the query key. And this is an array that we can use to specify the key for this query. Let's just say products now, and we're going to talk about the key a bit later. And there is also the query fn, or query function. Basically, what function should we run to get that to run this query? And the function that we want to run is going to be called list products from our API. List products is a function that is going to go and grab our data. Now the use query will give us back a couple of things, and the ones that we are interested in right now is data, which is going to be exactly the data that we are fetching. It's going to be the is loading, and it's going to give us the error. Now we replaced all of this code with this use query hook, and we can take this data, send it to our flat list, and we see that we forgot the query client. Yeah, that's true, because I rushed it too fast. Well, we need one more thing after installing TanStack Query. We need to go to the root layout in app_layout and import query client. And all we have to do is wrap it around our whole application, the query client. Query client provider. Yeah, that's what happens when I don't want to check the documentation. I think that I remember it from the memory. Okay, I'm gonna check the documentation. So, quick start. We need the query client provider, and we need to create a client. So that's what I was missing. We need to create a client above here. And with the query client provider, I'm gonna simply send here the client, query client. And let's import the query client as well from TanStack Query. So we create a client, we provide it to our application like this, and now our application can run queries and mutations using TanStack Query. And besides easy management of requests like data, loading, error states, and so on, besides that, we also get a local cache that is going to cache our data locally. So if we send multiple request list products at the same time, it's not going to reach the server multiple times. Maybe later we can talk about that. I can show you, but basically it works based on the query keys. So if you send multiple use queries from different parts of your application, all with a query key product, it's going to say like, hey, if you're doing too many requests in a very short amount of time, most probably the products are going to be the same. So it's going to take it from the local cache without reaching the server at all. So this is the power of this query, and that's also how later we're going to be able to invalidate some queries. Make sure to reload them from completely different parts of the application. About that also a bit later. So now we no longer need the dummy data. We no longer need the use effect, the state variables, and so on, because we are simply using the use query. And here we can do also if is loading. Let's return a loading or an activity indicator from React Native. And if error, we're gonna return what? A text from UI saying error, maybe providing the details. That would be a very common way of handling it. We send the request. While it's loading, we show some activity indicator, or preferably skeleton loading, which we can also get into if we have time by the end. If there is an error, we show the error. Otherwise, we are working with the data, which can also be renamed here. And another thing is that the error that we get here is going to be the error that our function list products, for example, is throwing. So unless the request here is not throwing any errors, like if it simply returns the error, maybe we can check here if response.status is more than more or equal than 300. So basically if it's not 200, is that how you would do it? Or maybe if response is not okay, maybe then we can throw an error, throw error. Error, maybe even provide here the details about the error, if we can get it from the request data. Okay, so now if we throw this error, it's going to be caught by TanStack Query and sent it to us through the error so that we can render on the UI properly. Response.okay, thank you very much. That was what I was looking for. I would do like a very weird stuff, like if status is more than 300, but yeah, response.okay is the way to go. Hello, Prashad. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So that's the first step. That's our fetching of products. Let's go ahead and together implement the next request, getting the product details. Because when we send a request to /products, we can take the ID from here, 37. And if we add it to the URL 37, it's going to give me details about that product. So what we need is we're going to start with creating the function, like the low-level function of actually going and sending that request. I'm going to do it here. Export async function get product or fetch product, maybe fetch product by ID. We're gonna send here the ID of type a number, yeah, or maybe even string. It's actually number, but can be string as well, a stringify number. Then we're gonna send a request to fetch, using fetch to the API URL /products/ and here is where we put the variable ID. Now we get the data and I'm gonna do the same. We get the data. If it's not okay, we're gonna throw an error, maybe provide the data, the response about the error, and return the data here. Now we go to the application products ID where we have the ID, and instead of taking them from the dummy data, we're gonna use TanStack Query to send a request to the server and fetch it from there. So again, we're gonna get data is loading an error. That's usually how it starts, from use query, a hook imported from TanStack Query that has the following properties: query function, query key, which is an array, and query function, which is a function. And the function that we need to call is fetch product by ID, and we're gonna send this ID there. But we probably have to make it a number like this. Okay, everything is here, but what would be the query key here? Well, usually we try to keep hierarchy of keys. That's why the query key is an array. We can provide a hierarchy, like the first part of a key. I'm going to reuse the first part of a key on our product page. And here I called it products. So I'm gonna reuse it here like this. And the second part of a key is going to be what identifies this request as unique. For example, in my case, that's the ID. So I'm gonna put the ID here, and the combination of products and a specific ID is going to make the request unique. So if I'm sending to different products, that would be different results, that will be different data, and it's not going to reuse the cache. But if I'm sending two requests to the same ID, the combination is going to be the same and it's going to reuse the cache. Now, I can maybe comment out this product from here and rename data to product so that I don't have to change anything below. I can do is loading if is loading. Let's return an activity indicator from React Native. If error, let's return a text saying failed or product not found maybe. And this one probably is not even needed because product here, if it passed through the loading and there is no error, that means that there is a product, hopefully. So now if I reload and press on one of these products, as you can see, I'm going to remove a dummy data import. So if we see something, that means that this is already from the server. And as you can see, that's true. That's data from the server. Perfect. And look what's happening. I'm gonna reload. Pay attention at how data is loading. When I press on this item, there is a split of a second when the data is loading and it's not visible. If I go back here, now there is no data loading. The data is already there. If I go to a new product, there is again that split of a second request. And if I go back here, it's already here because I've been there. So it's reusing the cache. And if I would navigate to a completely different page that is using the same query key, and if the data was already fetched, it's going to be taken from the cache first. So that is our second query to fetch product by ID. I no longer need this one. And everything looks good. Git status. Think I can easily do a git add, git commit. And this is the basics of TanStack Query and API integration. Later in the video, we're also going to learn about mutations to submit data, to send post requests, to submit an order, for example. I hope you make features, create and delete. We're going to do create. We're going to create orders. Let me double check how are we on time. 2:34. Okay. We have to move. Faster to manage everything that we proposed ourselves. So what do we have here? We have TanStack Query with our backend. The next one is going to be our shopping cart with Zustand. And then after implementing shopping cart with Zustand, we're going to go back to our backend to submit orders, to create orders. Our backend is ready to accept orders, but we need to have a list of items in our shopping cart. And for that, we're going to use Zustand to do that. So give me 1 second. I'm going to be back and we continue implementing the shopping cart and learning about Zustand to manage our global store. So see you in a second. All right, I'm back. So let's get going. Prashad, thank you very much. Prashad is saying the application looked fantastic. Thank you. That's all due to Gluestack. Probably I wouldn't be able to build such a clean UI without Gluestack. If we manage to add the skeleton loaders, like that would be really nice. But now I think the time is for us to integrate the shopping cart. So let me check git status. But before that, I think you want to say hello to Denchik, right? Denchik. Look who is here. Look who came here. Hello. Did you have your nap? Chill, bro. So, are we using Zustand today? Okay, Denchik, you gotta go. And we have to continue. So speaking about the shopping cart, I'm gonna just recap what I was saying previously. I see a lot of developers trying to reach out to a global state management too soon whenever you don't really need to. So don't think that any application would need a global state management. You're fine in most cases just using local state for things that are happening. Some prop drilling is perfectly fine, like it's not the end of the world. And when most of your data is remote data that we have here, things from our backend, from our database, the products, orders, and so on. In that case, with TanStack Query, that's enough. We don't need anything extra because TanStack Query comes with a caching mechanism, so the data is already globally cached in the same place. Now, you only need a global state management when you're working with local data. In our case, we want to include data about what things are we using adding to the cart. This is the data that didn't reach the server yet. It's still locally. We build the cart until we submit the order. So we could use a React context here, but that would involve like some performance issues that we're not gonna get into. And the perfect solution for managing the data for a shopping cart is going to be a global state management. As a global state management library, we're gonna use Zustand, which is a really nice and powerful library, quite easy to integrate with, that offers Flux-like, it's quite similar to how Redux is working, but it's more modern. So let's go ahead and start by installing it, and I'm gonna explain it while we are using it. Let's make sure that we are in our Ecommerce mobile. So if I do ls, I would see like things like metro config. And let me go ahead and install Zustand. I'm gonna go ahead and create a folder here called store. And in the store, let's create a file called cartstore.ts. In the cart store, we need to create our Zustand store. To do that, we're going to import create from Zustand. We're going to create it. One second. We're going to create the store. And when creating it, we need to return an object, and this object is our whole global store. That's where we're gonna keep our data, like the items that we have in the cart, and also that's where we're gonna keep our actions that we want to do on the data. For example, add product to the cart. So add product will receive a product of type any for now, and what it will do is it will have to update the state. To update the state, we can get this set method when we create the store, and we call the set with an updated with the fields that we want to update. So we call set with items where we want to put the products. But the products this product we want to append to the item. So instead of just replacing here through the setter, I'm going to use an update function, very similar to how useState is working. We can either send a value and it will replace, or we can send a function, and for that function, we can update, and for example, do items is going to be state.items plus a new object with this product. And this one should be returned, so I need to put it in the round brackets. Now, the create function will return a hook called use, let's say, use card. Through this hook, we can get access to the data, we can get access to the actions, and so on. So let's go ahead and export default use card. Should I do export default or export const? Maybe I can do export const here. Export const. Okay. Here I don't need the round brackets. And just like that, we have a cart that stores items and an action that will receive a product and will update our items to add a new product there. Product with initially quantity 1. So an item will have information about product and information about quantity, like this. Let's go ahead and import this use cart somewhere in our application. For example, here where we have our add to cart button. So in our application product ID, we need access to the add to cart. We need access to the add product. So add product is going to be the function that we can get by calling the use cart. Use cart store. And here in the use cart, we need to specify a selector. And a selector is how do we want to get the exact state from the whole global state in order for React to optimize it and not re-render unnecessarily. So from the whole state, I'm only going to get the state dot add product. And the value that we return here is going to be add product. And I can call it when we press the button add to cart. Let's maybe add on press, add to cart, and create this as a function, const add to cart. And when we call that method, I'm going to call this add product from our global store with a value product that we are rendering. Just like that, if I go here and press add to cart, something happened. I don't know what happened, but something did happen. But let's go ahead and see where we can. For example, let's go ahead and also take the cart items from our use cart state dot items and do a console log to see what is the state of our cart items. Are we actually adding them correctly or not? If I go ahead and look here, maybe I should also do a json.stringify so we can see them better with null and 2 in the indentation level. If now I'm going to press add to cart, we see a new item added to cart. Our cart consists of, it's an array that starts here, and it has this product with quantity 1, it has this product with quantity 1, AirPods. If I'm going to go to headphones, I'm going to add, we see that to all of the items, it also added these items. So that means that we are correctly adding items to the cart. While we do not need them here, we're going to need the items from the cart on the separate screen that we already actually have here as cart.tsx. First, let's see how we're going to navigate here. And I believe that the best way would be through a header icon. So in the underscore layout, under the stack here, I'm gonna use the screen options to set the header right component of all the screens, so basically both here and here, to render an icon. In the icon that I want to render, I'm gonna go into the Gluestack UI And I'm gonna check that they have an icon component. Icon. So here is the icon. Here are a list of Gluestack icons, but Gluestack also integrates really nicely with how they're called, Lucid icons. So let's go ahead and first install with Gluestack UI add icon, install the component icon in our application. In the mobile application, let's add the icon. Hello, Mike. What have I missed? Oh, there is a lot of things that we have built today, but the good news is that the live stream is going to be here. So long story short, let me install the next tab because I'm gonna lose the track of it. I also want to install the Lucid icons. So if I open this link, we are going to go into the Lucid icons for React Native. So I'm gonna select npm and install them Lucid React Native. npm install Lucid React Native. And with the icon from Gluestack, which is a component that can render icons, and with Lucid icons that provides us with icons, I can render here in the header right an icon. Let's do that here. An icon from components UI icon. And the icon that I want to render is shopping cart imported from Lucid React Native. So if I do that, I think I need to put it into a function, the header right. Come on. I want to see the shopping cart icon there. Hello, Yai from Nigeria. How are you doing? Privacy is okay. There are some questions about our global store. I'm gonna go back there and try to answer the questions. Now there is something here with header right. What's going on? Should I unexpected token? What am I doing here? Header right is a function that renders icon as shopping cart. Screen options. Anyone sees what I'm doing wrong? Header right is not a function. Yeah, but now I fixed it. npm start. Yes, that's right, private. That's why I added like an object product there. What am I doing there? Gluestack UI provider, stack, header right, screen options. If I remove it, reload. I messed up something here. What did I mess up? Unexpected token. Return. Reload. Under a stack, but I already removed it. Okay, we are back. Are we? Yeah. And if I do that, reload. Yes, we are good. So some weird things about cache probably. So now in the header right of our stack screen, we have a cart item. And what I want to do is when I press on it, I want to navigate to the shopping cart. So I'm going to have to wrap it around the link component from Expo Router like this. And the link will have a href of / cart, because that's our screen / cart. Now it's not gonna work because icon doesn't have a onPress event. That's why we need a pressable from React Native. And the as child on the link. Now if I press, we are redirected to the cart screen. Perfect, exactly what I wanted, both from there and from the product details. Okay, good. Now, on the shopping cart screen, here I need the data from the cart. I need the items that were in the shopping cart. To get them, it's pretty simple. Items is going to be use cart, because we are using the global store, and with a selector we are targeting exactly the data that we need, state.items. And you can rename them here, for example, cart items and so on. Now I'm gonna go ahead and do a console log items, and we should see that after I add something to the cart and then go to that cart, we see items. I need to rename them like this. So if I go here, add this to the cart, and then go here, we see that we have this item product with quantity 1. Perfect. Now what that means is that I can go ahead here and using a flat list from React Native, where our data is going to be the items from our global state, so data items, I'm going to render them as following. So for every cart item, I want to render a row. That row, let's figure out. It's going to start as a box from component. It's going to have, let's go with a text that will say item, the name of a product.name. And on the right, I want it to say quantity, item quantity. Let me see how I was preparing it here. So in the cart, okay, in the cart it had name and on the right the quantity. Let's at least see it like this. If I add to the cart and maybe this one as well, and then go to the cart, we see something. That's good. Let's go ahead and give, maybe use instead of a box an horizontal stack. Did we install horizontal stack? I don't think we did. We only did the vstack. Let's go ahead and install horizontal stack as well, using npx gluestack UI add hstack. This is going to be an easy way to create a horizontal stack. We can do that with Flexbox, but by using Gluestack components, we can literally import this component and it will put them into the same row. If I do add to cart and go there, here it is. With class name, you can also do justify items, or maybe the quantity. We'll have a class name margin left auto, so that it will move to the right. The h tag, let's do a class name here, bg white, just for a second. Yeah, padding 3. And I'm gonna also render probably the price of the item. So product price. And if we want to put product price on top of below the name, we can group them together into a VStack like this. And if you want to add some spacings between them, you can do that with space SM. And now if I check it again, maybe the name is going to be bold. Is text imported? No, text is imported from React Native, so I'm going to remove them from React Native and also make sure to import text from our UI. Okay, so let's try to add something to the cart. Add to the cart. If we open, here we have them. Perfect. Class flat list is nice. I'm just simply going to add a content container class name gap 1 to gap 2 to manage the gap between them. Think that's nice. Maybe content container style will have a max width of 960 pixels so that it looks nice on web as well, and the width full, and maybe even, what is that, margin X auto. I don't know, let's see how that will look on the web, just to make sure that it also looks okay there. While it's loading, let me think about the next steps already. What's that? Okay, here we have our shop. We can add things to our cart. And then we can go to the shopping cart. We have them here. It's too zoomed in. I will zoom out, and it has like a max width. Perfect, that's good. Yeah, you can improve on that because we have to move on, and I just want to show you the functionality for now, and I'm happy with how we have it here. So what we have right now is we learn how to use Zustand as a global store, and I'm gonna go back to see what we have there. So our cart store has two things. It has the items property, and in the items we are storing cart items. And then we have a function add product to cart that will go ahead and set or take that product and add it as a new cart item with quantity 1. Maybe you can also, before adding as a new product, you're gonna search if it already exists there instead items, using the ID, and if it exists, you just simply increase the quantity. I'm gonna skip that for now, but that would be a nice to do. If already in cart, increase quantity, else add a new item. So what we are doing here with this global store is we can use this information in multiple places in our application. For example, in the application, in the product details, we are accessing the function or the action add products, and we call it when we press on the button. On the cart screen, we are getting the items, and maybe in the layout, we are going to get the const total or cart items number, how many cart items we have. We're gonna get them using use cart and with a selector. And in these selectors, you can add logic, because so far we saw how we can access them like this, state.items. But we can also add logic. For example, state.items.length is going to give us how many items are there, so we can render them here in a small text like this. So if I reload, carts item, we need to render it as a variable. And we also need this pressable to say, hey, class name, do that as flex row. Maybe gap 2. And we see there 0. If I add something there, come on. If I go, is this a problem? Root layout, render fewer hooks. Is this the problem? It shouldn't be. Reload. What? Why? Shouldn't be the case. Render fewer hooks. Maybe I will render it conditionally only if there is cards item number. If it's more than 0, only then render the log icon. Not sure if that will solve the problem. Add to cart. It updated, it added it there. We see as we press the icon, we add items there. Yeah, now it's actually fixed. So probably with that 0, it was a problem. I don't know why. But now it looks nice. We see how many items we have there. We can go here, we can scroll through them, and we can manage the shopping cart like this. The only thing that we need on that shopping cart is at the end, and we can do that at the end using list footer component. We're going to render a button from Gluestack with a button text that will say checkout or submit order or something like that. On press, we'll call on checkout. So what's going to happen here? Let's define the const on checkout. It's going to be a async function. In a second, it's going to send the order to the server. So send order to server. And later it's going to have to reset the state of our cart or to reset it. So let's go in our global store, cart store, and add a new action, add a new function here called reset cart. And that is going to be a function that will simply call set items. I don't need to update, and that's why I don't need the function here in the set. I need to overwrite. I need to set items to an empty array. So that's why it's much simpler than updating an existing state. So now if I get the reset cart in my cart screen, here reset cart equal use cart state dot reset cart, and if I call that function when we check out, let's see what's gonna happen. I'm gonna reload. Loading. I'm gonna go ahead, add to cart, maybe add more items. I'm gonna go here, I'm gonna press checkout, and badadum, we have an empty cart. Probably if the cart is empty, we can check it here, like if items.length is equal to 0, then we're not supposed to be on the cart screen. So in that case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to return a redirect component from Expo Router and redirect the user away from the cart screen to the slash. And in this case, it will automatically, whenever we reach the cart, when we do not have items in the state, it's going to redirect there. And let me add here a padding 10, padding 2 or 3, padding 2. So now if I reload, greetings from Serbia, hello Nemanha. Add to cart, if I go there, we can check out and we are automatically redirected back because there is no items in the cart. I'm gonna go here, we have them, we can scroll, we can press checkout, and we are resetting the cart. Perfect, so that is our cart management. Let me check where I'm doing console log because I'd like to remove them. Console.log in the index API. No, in the API routes. What? No. Okay, never mind. I think it's good. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a git add shopping cart with global state using Zustand. That's another skill that we have learned and we have integrated in our e-commerce application, the shop cart management using global store with Zustand. Perfect. How's it going so far, guys? Oh my God, we have more than 200 people watching live. That's amazing. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us live. And by the way, if you're new on this channel, if you haven't already subscribed, maybe you're not new, maybe you're watching it multiple times, but you're relying on YouTube recommending our tutorials to you. If that's the case, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that red button below the video. That will help us a lot. And thank you very much for all your trust and support. Now back to our application. Back here in the guide, we still have things to do. So we have a cart and the whole logic of a shopping cart is done. I think the next step is going to be to submit an order using to submit an order to our backend using TanStack Query, right? So are there any more questions about the global state, the Zustand, and what we just did? What here? So yeah, Private was explaining what makes Zustand better than context is that with Zustand we avoid unnecessary re-renders on our whole application. So for data that is changing quite often, it's better to use a library that is specialized in global state management like Zustand or Jotai or something else, or Redux compared to context. But yeah, at the same time, don't be afraid of context because I use it a lot of the times and it's perfectly fine. Okay, so as I said, the next step for us is going to be having like this list of items in our cart. What we want to do when we press checkout, we want to send the order to our backend. But actually for that, we need to be logged in. So we need another step before we manage to save orders. And the next step, the step that I'm talking about, is the authentication part. Because some of the API routes, like getting the product, getting product details, these are Also, we made them available for unauthorized users as well. Like if we look in the API routes here for products, products index, we see that list product and get products. This is available to anyone. Create products, update products only to sellers. And speaking about worders, the worder has this verified token, which will only be available to users that are authenticated. For that, we need to create an account, log in, and then take the token. And when sending the request to them to save a worder, we need to use that data, that token. So let's go ahead and implement the authentication. So the authentication flow. First things first, we need the UI. I'm gonna go to the Gluestack, and I'm gonna go, they have a lot of components specifically for forms. And this is something huge because whenever I have to work with forms, like it's always a challenge to get all the different input types properly in my application. And I usually spend a lot of time creating reusable components for myself. But with a solution like Gluestack, I can have like all of these components that you see here. And somewhere I found a login screen that I can just reuse, made of everything. It should be under the input. And if we scroll down from the input, we have here input type login, the login screen in the examples. So let's go ahead and first go under the input types, and let's take the login screen in our application. I'm gonna copy the whole code here, and in our source, not in API, but in the mobile, in our application, let's go ahead and create a new folder. I usually call it off with round brackets to make this a folder, but round brackets for not affecting the URL. And the screen login, for example, login.tsx. Let's paste the code from there and maybe rename function application to login screen. Let's export this function, export default this function from here. And we need some things like a form control that we don't have yet. I'm gonna look into the form control and see how we can install it by running Gluestack add form -control. Being in my mobile application, let's run the add form control. Will this application get a new refresh token if the current one is expired? I didn't plan to do that here because I'm running out of time. So I can maybe give you some advice how you can implement that. Form control, here we have it, add import. vstack, let's import it because we have it installed. Heading, we have it, let's import. vstack, text, let's import text from components. There is a common issue that heading is important from Lucid icons and then it's going to give you an error. So let's remove this from here and make sure that the heading is imported from components folder. Input is something that we have to install. So let's go under the input, copy the command and run npx gluestack UI add input. That is going to add here the input. Let's import it. Input field, it's imported from input. Input slot as well should be imported from input. Input icon also from input. Icon, this is something imported from Lucid React Native. Off also from Lucid. Button is something imported from components UI button. And the on press, let's remove this line, set show model. And let's import button text. And that should be our screen. I'm going to remove React from here and import use state directly from React at the top. And that should be everything that we need for the login screen. Let's go ahead and navigate to this login screen, also from somewhere in our application. I'm going to go into the layout, and where we have header right, I'm going to add another, I'm going to copy paste it. I'm going to add header left. Header left. It's going to be a link to the /login, and that's why I have parentheses there, because I can skip it in the URL. The off is skipped here, so I can just go login. There's going to be a pressable, the text, there is no text, and the icon is going to be user from Lucid Icons. User, where is it? User somewhere from Lucid React Native. Now if I reload, we should have another icon here. Yes, we have. So if I press it, I'm redirected to the login screen. In the login screen, maybe I'm gonna have to this heading to add some, I don't know, margin, padding top 3, because for some reason I don't see it. And to the whole form control, let's add a BG white. Okay, maybe padding 2 as well. Padding or margin? Margin, I meant margin. Margin 2. So if I go here, perfect. That's the login screen, and it should also work on the web. Maybe we should on the web set some max width. That's something probably that you have to do. Max width, I don't know, 500 pixels. So that on web it's also working properly. And for the buttons, where we have a buttons, here we have a buttons. Let's go ahead and add 2 buttons. One of them is going to be for creating an account, and another one for logging in. So the first one here is create or sign up and sign in. Let's keep it simple. Sign up, and the second one is sign in. I'll also put them into the same row by adding them into a H stack, horizontal stack. And I'm gonna wrap them, both buttons, in this H stack. Now to make them take the necessary amount, instead of ML auto, I'm going to do flex 1 for both of them here and flex 1 here. On the H stacks, I'm gonna add a space SM to add some spacings between them. And that should be our buttons there. Sign up and sign in. I'm gonna remove a class name typography from the button text here and here. And the button itself, I'm gonna make the sign up to be variant outline. Let's try it like that. And here we have our login screen. Okay, perfect. I'm gonna go ahead and commit things because this is the UI of our login screen. Git commit -m login screen UI. And now let's go ahead and implement the requests that we need to send to the server. The request that we need to send to the server in our API, if you're going to look at the routes, there is the auth routes and there is a /login /register. Both of them are expecting a password and an email. Password and email. Also have them in the Founder client here under login. It's a post request with email and password. Don't look at this one. And register, it's also, don't look at this one because I just showed that it's not possible to do that with this information. Email, password is required, and things like name is optional. So let's go ahead and start by implementing in our mobile API folder that has the request sent to the database. Let's create a new one here called auth.ts. From products, I'm going to bring the API URL. And maybe you can add a configuration file to import it, but I'm going to declare it here at the top. Let's do export const, export async function, login, and this function will receive an email and password. The email is string, password is also string. And what it should do is it should send a post request to our API. So again, the response is going to be taken with await fetch. The URL is going to be the API URL slash, I think it's slash, if we look in the Founder client, the login is slash auth slash login. So slash auth slash login. Then for the parameters, this is no longer a GET request. We need to send the method. This is a POST request. We need headers to say that, oh, I really miss the AI autocompletion stuff. Because the header I'm interested in is in the content type application JSON. And the body is going to be the object email and password, but we need to stringify it. So we're going to use json.stringify and the object email and password. Now let's go ahead and take the response data. So const data is equal response.json, and we should await. So again, if response is not okay, we're going to throw an error saying failed to log in. Otherwise, let's simply return the data. And I'm gonna copy paste it one more time for the sign up. The URL is going to be probably register. Did I call it register/register? Let's change the URL to register. It's also going to work with email and password. Additionally, it can have like other fields like name and so on, but I'm going to keep it simple for now. It's going to send it to the backend. It's going to get it and throw an error if the response is not okay. Now that we have this low-level logic of sending the requests, all we have to do is to use a mutation with React with TanStack Query to send this data to the server. So let's go ahead in our login screen. And while previously on the product screen or on the index, we saw how to use query hook from TanStack Query, this one is helping us get data. If we want to send data to the server, we are using a mutation. So a use mutation will have the following things. I don't think it has a key because it's not going to give us back the data, but it's going to have the function. How is it called? Use mutation, TanStack Query. Mutation fn is going to, here we need to specify what function we need to run when we execute this mutation. when we execute this mutation, we want to, let's start with login. Login function imported from API auth. Another cool thing about, but we need to send the email and password. We don't yet have an email and password. You know why? I'm gonna comment it out. Because we need to define these state variables for the email and password that the user is typing. Set email. This is going to be use state like this. And the same thing for the password. Password. Set password. Password. And these values, we're gonna attach them to the inputs. For example, this one is email input. Input field value email, and on change text set email, so update the state. The same thing for the password. We have the input password. Where is the input field here? Password. Let's do value password, and on change text set password. Now when we type something here, we're gonna store it in state. Something is not working here, or maybe I need to reload. Is password working? Yes, it's working. So what I'm going to do with these values is in the mutation, when I call login, I'm gonna send email there and password. Besides the mutation function, we can send to the use mutation things like onSuccess, which is a function that will be called when the mutation runs successfully. And we can do console log success. And also on error, which is going to be a function that is going to be called when the mutation threw an error. Error. Now what we can get is we get this login mutation, and this is an object with a lot of data. One of them is a function that will trigger this mutation. So usually a mutation or an action is not going to happen as soon as we mount the screen. It's going to happen when we press a button, for example. So we're going to take this login mutation, we're going to go to the login part, and we say when we press, I want to call login mutation dot mutate. This will trigger a function and will trigger this login function from here. And if it's successful, we'll go here. If error, will go here. Let's see in the console log. If I do sign in, we have an error. If I'm gonna go into the API auth for the login to maybe console log data if there is an error, let's see what data we have. Sign in, we have authentication failed. So that means that first, let's go ahead and create an account. And I'm gonna go back to my login screen, and I'm gonna duplicate the login mutation for the sign up mutation. Sign up mutation. We're gonna call the function sign up from API auth. We're gonna send there again email and password and success sign up. There is also data that is going to be returned by this function, which we're gonna get here in the onSuccess. So we can do data to show what we got. And I think here there would be error, would it? Yeah. So we can display error. Now sign up mutation, we need to trigger it when we press on the sign up. So let's trigger it, mutate. Now if I'm gonna do hello at notjust.dev 123 123 sign up, What do we see here? We see success sign up, token, and user. That's exactly what we needed. If now I'm gonna press sign in with the same data, I should get the same result, success. And from the success, I get data, so I can, in the login mutation, also console log data. If I do sign in, we get, come on, sign in. So if I'm gonna do what was there, hello at notjust.dev, 123, sign in. We see success token, but if the password is going to be wrong, if I do sign in, we see error authentication failed. Maybe from the API, like you can send more details like why it failed, but anyway, we see that authentication failed. We can basically use this login mutation that also has information if there was an error or not. We can access it login mutation.error. And what you can do is you can go to the form control, and the form control from Gluestack has this is invalid, and you can pass here true, for example, and it should make the inputs with red. If I'm gonna go here, as you can see. So what I can do is the form control is going to be invalid if login mutation dot error is true, or if sign up mutation dot error is true. Also, you can go ahead and display these errors without having to take it from here and store it in state. You can access them right from the sign up mutation dot error. So now if I go here and press sign in, we see there was an error. Not the best feedback, but there is something. And I will do hello at notjust.dev, a123, or just 123, sign in. We are successfully logged in, and we can go ahead, take this token and store it somewhere, because we're gonna need the token to later send the next requests. That's how we're gonna validate that the requests are coming from a specific user. So what do we need here? I'm gonna go ahead and create another global store that will handle, or that will store information about the signed in user. Okay, so in the store, let's go ahead and create a new one called of store.ts, and here let's do a import create from Zustand, and let's export const use of, and let's create a store. Let's get the setter, and let's return the following data. The store will contain the user, which initially is going to be null, and a token, which initially is going to be null. It will also export a couple of two functions. Set user, which will get the user, and it will call set user. Basically, will in the object of our store, will replace the user with the one that we send, and the same will do for the set token. Token, set token. Now let's go ahead and import use of set user and set token in our login screen, and do const set user use of state, or let's do s dot set user, and also const set token use of s dot token, or set token. Now let's go ahead and call this function when we successfully log in the user. So I'm going to check if data dot user and data dot token, because that's the data we get from calling register or signing in. So if I do here 6, 7, oh, but I'm not running locally. But anyway, you saw that back we're gonna get an object with 2 fields, user and token. So if both of them are set, we're gonna call set user with user information, data.user, and set token, data.token. And I will do the same thing in the onSuccess of a sign up, because we get the token both from sign in and both from sign up, in order not to have to sign in after creating an account. Like if you create an account, you already logged in. And maybe I can also do const is logged in. I'll take the information from the use of store. I'll do s.token, like if there is a token, then I consider is logged in. And if that is true, I'm gonna go ahead and return a redirection. So if is logged in, I don't need to be here. I will go ahead and return a redirect href to the slash. So now after I do hello at notjust.dev 123 sign in, I should automatically be redirected to a shop. Yes, and now I should have access to this token from anywhere in my application. So yeah, the only thing that it's not working yet is if I'm going to reload, I'm going to lose, like I'm not storing the token anywhere in my, I'm not persisting the token. So I have to log in again. With Zustand, you can have where it is in the guides, no, in the integrations, there is a middleware for persisting the stored data. Let's hope that it's going to be easy to integrate, because we don't have a lot of time yet. So persisting data, like everything that is in Zustand, this is data that we're gonna lose once we reload the application. Once we close and open the application, the global store is lost. However, with a middleware like persist, we can take the store and write it to the storage of a device, so that next time when we use it, it's going to read it and have the same data. So let's try to import from middleware these 2 stores. The middleware persist and create JSON storage. I don't think we need create JSON storage. We need local. I need a local storage. How do I do that with async storage? Zustand async storage. Asset get storage, async storage. Add this here. Okay, let's try. Is it get storage or just storage? Create JSON session storage. Where is session storage coming from? By default, local storage. So I think here is where we're gonna send it. Okay, let's try it. So we need to put the set function inside persist. So after create, the set will get into persist. We call it like this, and we close the call at the end. Now the second parameter after the set inside persist is going to be the options that we configure persist. One of them is name, is going to be off store, and the storage is going to be, probably we need that create JSON storage. And probably here is where we send the async storage. So let's import or first install async storage. We're going to do that with Expo. Importing async storage. I really hope that it's gonna work, because we have to, and let's import async storage from React Native async storage, and I'll give it here. Let's see. I'm gonna reload. I'm going to go here and I'm going to sign in with hello at notjust.dev 123 sign in. Now if I reload, now without reloading I cannot go there because we are redirecting back. We know that we are signed in. If I'm gonna reload, if the persistent worked, if I go to the there, it also saves. So now we persisted and we stored the token and the user to the local storage. So even after reloading, it knows that we are signed in. Another thing that I want to do is maybe in the application underscore layout, this header left, I'm not going to add it everywhere. I'm actually going to add it only to the index options here, because I only want it on the index screen, but at the same time I only want it if the user is not authenticated. So is logged in. I'm gonna copy it from here to the layout. I'm gonna say let's import use of. I'm gonna only render this header left if he's not logged in. He's not logged in. Then render the button. Now if I reload, we do not see the button here because we are already logged in, and we can go ahead and add things to our cart. And now we are supposed to be able to send and create a new order because we are already logged in. So let's go ahead and do a git add, git commit -m. That was our authentication implemented in the application. Oh, perfect. Zustand, a lot of things done. So we needed authentication in order to submit orders, and that would be the next step. We still have to send the order to our database. If I'm gonna look at the Thunder client, on the create order, we see that first of all in the headers it has this authorization token because it only allows to create orders for authorized clients. And in the body, we send their information, a list of items with product ID, with quantity, and with price. So what we're gonna do is, this information is what we have in our checkout. Let's go ahead in the API, create a new, in our mobile API, let's create a new file called orders.ts, which will have information on how we can interact with our orders API. Let's export async function create order. The create order is going to receive items, which is an array of any. We're not very good with TypeScript today. We are not managing to write the types because I wanted to do a lot of stuff today. And the response is going to be equal to await fetch, and here we're gonna fetch our API URL orders. Create order is /orders, and the method is post. So let's send the options here method. Post headers. And under headers, we see that we have, first of all, it needs content type. So let's do content type, but it also needs a header called authorization. And here is where we're gonna put the token, which we do not have yet, but we're gonna get it in a second. Lastly, the body is going to be a JSON.stringify version of, well, here we see that the body has order and items. So it's going to be an object with order, which I don't know, we didn't provide any information about the order, maybe we don't even need it, but I'm gonna put it as empty object. But the items is going to be the ones that we're gonna send there. Now let's go ahead and do the same things as here, like if response is not okay, const data equal await response dot JSON. If it's not okay, we're gonna throw an error. Maybe we're gonna even console log the data. And that's our create order function. Let's take it and through a mutation through TanStack Query, send it when we press checkout button. I'm gonna go into the application under cart, and here we have a checkout on checkout. Let's go ahead and start by create order mutation. It's going to be use mutation from TanStack Query. And there we need the mutation function, which is going to call the from orders create order function. Create order, and here we need items. But items that we have in state are a bit different than the items that we have to send to the server. Because in store, in global store, we also have like product name, information, and so on. But to the server, we need to send an item is an object with these three fields: product ID, quantity, and price. Let's go ahead and map through the items from cart, and for every item, we need to generate this product ID, quantity, and price. I know that quantity is item.quantity, because remember in our use card, where is it, use card? We have product information and quantity. So that's why we get item quantity, but things about product is going to be item.product.id and price item.product.price. So what's going on here? Cannot find create order because we have to import it from API functions. Now let's add the one error, one success. And on success is going to have data. Let's see what's going to happen now when we trigger the create order mutation in the on checkout. So on checkout, create order mutation dot mutate. Now if I'm going to go ahead and reload my application. Yeah, that's true. Private is saying a very good piece of information. Don't send price, let the server get the price, otherwise you have a big security problem. That's very true. By sending the price from the client side, we allow users to send their price. In fact, the server, knowing the product ID, should read the price from the server, from the database, and store it there. So that's very true. Let's add it to cart. Let's go add one more, for example, this one. Let's go to cart. If I do on checkout, it's not gonna work because items.map is not a function. Maps. It shouldn't be maps, it should be map. Well, resetting the cart should probably happen only on success. So I'm gonna move a reset cart in the on success. And in this case, maybe we don't even need this on checkout function because we can simply call the on mutate from there. But anyway, let's try again. Cart. Always forget to use a wait. Where did I forget to use a wait? Checkout, and if I look here, error access denied. That's true. That's because in our API orders, we are using token here hard-coded, when in fact we should use that token that we got from the login, from when we logged in. We store that one in a global store called off, use off, but how can we get here in this function? We saw how we can get the token in components. For example, in application layout, we used use off and we took the token like this. But in a function, we cannot use the use off hook. However, in this function, create order, we can do the following. Const token is equal to use off. Without calling it, we can do dot get state, then dot have a state token. And that's how we get the token here. And I will send it to the authorization. Is that how it works? Token get state dot token. Yes, I just need to type it with TypeScript, but everything else is fine. So now if I do checkout, it worked. And it created the order with these items and with this ID. If I'm gonna go now in my Genesio API, in my database, e-commerce, actions, view data, if I'm gonna look at the orders, we see a new order that was created today with ID 6. If I'm gonna go ahead and create a new order, add to cart, checkout, boom, we have a new order. And if I run the query again, in the orders, we have a order with ID 7, its status new, user ID 18, and in order items, we should have that order ID 7, the two items that we added, the total price or the price of the item, and that's how we set the orders. Amazing. So that's our git add, git commit, submit orders. That's a cool feature of Zustand. Yes, the Zustand can be used outside of React context, and that's very powerful. Especially think about background tasks. If you receive a notification, you want in background to get something from the global store, you can do that with Zustand. Oh boy, so that is basically bringing everything together. There is still a lot of things that you can improve here. And let me see, we are kind of running out of time. But I'm gonna give you some homework. The homework that you have to take from here would be to add a order management screen. So add a screen somewhere in the application that would go ahead and, the same way as we are loading products by ID, we can go ahead and send from the Thunder client list orders. Where is it? It should be list products, but it should be /orders. And if I send this request here, connection was refused because I need to do it on the API itself. So from your API, go ahead and load the orders and display them in a list here. Access denied because in the header, I need to add here authorization and I need the token. The token, where do we get the token from? Well, the token we get it from by logging in or by console logging it somewhere from the store. Let's do what? Let's do layout. I'm gonna do token console log token. I just want a token to show you the request that I would like you to implement next. So somewhere here should be the token. Here it is. I'm gonna grab it, put it in the headers authorization and send the request. Now we see an array of orders, order 4, 5, 6, 7. Probably from the backend we should limit it only to the user orders because these one are not from us. This one is user ID 13 and 17, but that's another thing on the backend. For you, you just send a request, load these orders here, display some information about them, and with orders / for example, we take ID 17. By sending a request to the details page, not only do you get information about the order, such as status, but also information about the items. So this would be the request that you have to send on the orders details page. So yeah, go ahead and try to implement these screens yourself. You're gonna need to work with, use everything that we learned today to build a user interface of these screens for showing the orders, for sending requests, similar to how we handle products, where we have a list of products in a flat list and then product details. The same thing you're gonna have for orders as well. So go ahead, practice, put everything that you learned today. There is nothing new in that except what we did, besides what we did today. So use everything here that we have as an inspiration, as a learning opportunity to implement the order screen as well. And that way you're gonna learn more information, more in depth about building UI with Gluestack, about fetching data from the server with React Query. I don't think you're gonna need anything to do with Zustand because orders are basically remote data, so that's going to be fetched from the server. You're gonna maybe go into more details on the API and implement or add some additional features there. That's also something that you can use as a learning opportunity. Hello, Mr. Frank. This e-commerce application is so smooth. Great job so far. Thank you very much. And this is just the second part because remember I was saying that this is going to be a 3-part project. Today we have built the mobile application with React Native Expo, Expo Router, Zustand for global store, TanStack Query, and Gluestack UI for the user interface. And the user application is available both on mobile for iOS and Android, but also on the web. So that's the user side application. In the first part, we built the backend, a REST API in Node.js. Today we've built a mobile application, and next week we're going to build the dashboard with Next.js, and that will complete more or less the tutorials. I have other ideas, but I'm going to see how I manage with everything that I planned. But I'm really happy with how this project is turning out because you can actually use it to build a real e-commerce application, and that's my goal. That's why I'm doing these tutorials here. I want to see you build applications, real application, deploy them, and go ahead, make some money with them. I don't know. Anyway, guys, if you enjoy this one, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much for sticking to the end. This is a long one, so if you stayed here for 4 hours, you are a hero. Take some break and then maybe come back and do the homework that I gave you. It was fun. And yeah, Next week, we're going to continue the project for the dashboard. I want to say a big thank you to the sponsor of today's video, Gluestack. It was so fun to build a user interface with Gluestack, and I don't think I would manage to do and to build the amount of features that we've built today without Gluestack, because building the UI is time consuming, and especially creating all the reusable components takes time. But with Gluestack, we accelerated this project so much, so much that we managed to do all the features that we planned today. All right, guys, thank you very much. Have a nice weekend ahead, and I'll see you